G'day, you beautiful people. It is wonderful to have you back here again. Hello, how are you going? It's good to have you here. Loving seeing some of you guys already jumping in the chat. Nice to have you. Now, please bear with us. As with everything, the first couple of minutes of every stream, it's going to chug a little bit while it balances and connects with us. Now, the other thing that we're going to be doing today is talking Fire Slayers. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, oh hey, Dimensional Cascade, Ricky, I'm guessing that's you. Wonderful to have you here. So 10 months in a row. Groovy, we could have had a baby that would be a 1 month old. And speaking of, my guest actually has a baby right now. Like he didn't have the baby is his, and but he is responsible, seemingly responsible for it. So I'm going to be talking to Mike, who's an old mate from back in Sydney, a furious Fire Slayers player, who is more than just a little bit salty about the fact that he bought his army before they released the Start Collecting box. And that's a level of love, hate, that I think no one else in War Dollies will ever experience. I can hear him chuckling in the background there. Mike, say hello to everybody.
G'day. I figured while you were introing me there that you were just saying things to trigger me before we started.
100%. Yeah, I was just trying to needle you until you broke.
Yeah. It is definitely my child. It's a bit older than 1 month, but
a little bit older.
Unfortunately, my Fire Slayers army actually got painted because of my daughter.
That's right.
So that's a cheeky little fun fact.
Tell the story. It's a good one.
Yeah, well, so I built up my Fire Slayers. I've obviously been a hobbyist since the beginning of time,
Mm-hmm.
but doing that survey the other day and realised that I'm in the old person category of all of their time bracket.
Yeah, when you're like going down
like
and
20
you're
plus years, geez.
You're like, God damn, why is that the fucking top?
Yeah, that was it made me feel much older than having a child made me feel.
Yeah, 100%. But I've raised a puppy, but doing that thing made me feel like I was old as fuck.
Yeah, so I promised myself, like, dwarves are what got me into Warhammer Fantasy Battles back in the day, and I almost promised myself that if they did a Plastic Slayers army, I'd be into Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. And
I did a Plastic Slayers army, and so I got into Age of Sigmar, and then I paid overs.
So yeah,
I paid.
Yeah, for those who don't know, in Australia now, for whatever reason, I don't want to go into it. Australia has some of the highest prices for Age of Sigmar for Games Workshop products anywhere in the world. It is what it is. It's the fucking way we live. You can complain about it and whinge and just be a sad sack, or you can just roll with the punches and get on with it. Now,
exactly.
When Fire Slayers released, a Magma Droth was $180 Australian, and a box of Vulkite Berserkers was $100 Australian. So currently, like, the Start Collecting box in Australia, I think is $140, $150 or something like that. And it has $280 worth of models in it, making it dollar for dollar the best value of any of them.
Compared to release price.
Yeah, compared to release price. And you bought how many Magma Droths and how many Vulkite Berserkers before the Start Collecting box?
I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it?
A lot.
A
Safe to say that I have bought quite a few Start Collecting boxes since, because obviously it's value, right?
Yeah. But yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Fun fact for those in the chat: you can't buy a Magma Droth in Australia anymore outside of a Start Collecting box. If you try to click on the Magma Droth, it's like, hey, we'll also give you 10 Vulkite Berserkers and a discount. There you go. So yeah, it's great. I love it. But I mean, they're beautiful models, so fair enough. But suffice it to say, your love of Fire Slayers was strong enough that you actually did it, though. Like
I had a conversation with myself and also with the folks at my gaming store who were happy to take money from me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that at some point a cheaper version of however the fuck I'm buying this is going to come out.
Yeah.
Right now, there are bearded dwarves that fucking furiously worship Grimnir by smashing shit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy all of them. And I'll just have to wear that cost. So it doesn't really upset me. I'd made that commitment to myself, you know.
Yeah.
I was doing it to impress 15-year-old me, you know. So I've made this promise to him, and I have to throw on it.
Yeah, but see, I'll throw it out to the chat as well. How many people, when they were a child, like, that have been playing Warhammer in some version since they were a kid, Because I remember as a kid getting a little bit here and maybe something for a birthday or a Christmas, like, and having a box and just having this haphazard piece of shit army that didn't make anything because it was like what Nan bought me or something, or what I could save up over ages with all my pocket money to afford. And then when I became an adult and kind of fell back in love with Warhammer, I was like, hey, I can buy a whole fucking army and no one can tell me not to. And like spending that money and just being like, God damn, if young me could see me now, he'd be so fucking proud of what I'm doing. Did you have the same vibe with the Fire Slayers?
The exact same vibe, but with a massive shit-eating grin on my face the whole time.
And a bigger price tag than anyone else ever in the history of it.
Yeah, look, I think I know that you've had this conversation before. Honestly, who cares? It's not like we're lining up to do the hobby because it's cheap.
Yeah.
You know, there are hobbies that are far more than war dollies, and if you sit around, I think it's one of those things, and maybe you and I have had this chat before about people who sort of lament their hobby and constantly think that everyone owes them something with the way that the hobby is built. The war dollies that I'd been waiting for my whole fucking life came out, and I bought shitloads of them. I was happy with that purchase then. I still am now. Now the fact that I probably could have saved a couple of $100 if I'd done it differently,
would have been real welcome.
And look, that was pre-kid and pre-mortgage, so at that point, my money was just money to play.
What were you spending it on? So. Yeah. Oh, and look, I think that's unfortunately the attitude that we don't talk about often enough. We talk about wanting this and rules being broken and wanting cheaper models, and we want everything. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, are you into this hobby to be salty and sad, or are you into it to be happy? If you can't do something because it's financially locking you out, then just vote with your wallet. Don't buy it and find something that you can. Or if that's not a thing, you can always like find secondhand. You can do whatever you like. There are solutions other than just whinging. And like I'm guilty of it as well. I'll have a whinge from time to time. But I think on the whole, you got to decide whether it's going to be positive or whether it's not. And I've invested way too much fucking time, energy, and money in this hobby to be a sad sack about it. So yeah.
I mean, at the risk of us both singing Kumbaya together about
I'd love for us to hold hands, start a small fire, and sing Kumbaya. But yeah,
I don't like. My free time is pretty limited. My hobby time is pretty limited. I have no interest in clogging up my free time with my hobby time with bitching about what rules may or may not have been. I mean, I feel like that's what the 40k community is. And I have no fucking interest in playing 40k for that reason as well. I'm like, nah, you guys, look, I know that I'm, obviously listening to your show and your international guest makes me realize just how much more than everyone else we swear.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. And sorry, I should probably, so before we go any further, if you are listening to this live or as the podcast or on Twitch or Facebook or YouTube, if wherever you're currently watching, there's people watching it everywhere. Okay, great. Mike and I have a rich, colourful history of vocabulary. Now, I'll try not to be too ripe, but this probably might not, at least the first little chunk of the show, probably won't be great for all listeners. There might be some swearing. Actually, there will be some swearing. And in Australia, swear words don't mean what they do in the rest of the world. This is something that I've had to acclimatise to now that I'm over here. So I can guarantee there'll be colourful language. It will potentially be offensive depending on where you are in the world. Just know that for us, it's like saying friend or mate. Like an example I would use is that I remember at home, when I was living on the Gold Coast one time, I heard like a smashed window. There was someone very obviously trying to rob the place next to me. And then the owner of the place came out with a baseball bat and was trying to hit the guy who was robbing it. And the bloke who was being hit by the baseball bat, who just tried to rob him, kept saying to him, mate, just leave it, mate. Mate, just leave it. Now, because he was calling him mate, that's how you knew that they weren't friends. But if he'd turned around and been, you fucking cunt, that would have meant that he was like his best mate. So we have very messed up morals and ways of speaking in Australia. Let's say it's because we're all convicts. So this is just a big verbal warning to everybody. that there's potentially going to be some swearing.
Well, the reason that popped into my mind was I was laughing when you were talking to, I can't remember his name, but the guy who organised when you guys were chatting,
West Coast Andy. Yep.
and yeah, when you were chatting to Andy, I was like, wow, we swear a lot.
Yo,
But
don't we just?
and but it was, I wanted to say, and now that you've already let the C bomb out of the bag, was I don't really want to spend my hobby time hanging around with salty cunts all the time. And what I mean by that,
it's a beautiful way to put it. Yep.
but what I mean by that, to maybe soften the vulgar Australianisms, is yeah, I have no interest in spending my hobby time, with people who are going to just lament the hobby that they have and talk about how upset they are that Games Workshop didn't read their minds and give them exactly what they wanted. Like, we live in the golden age of Warhammer. Games Workshop's never been more receptive to the community feedback, and sometimes that's bad. Like, Warhammer Fantasy Battle got destroyed because the vocal few ruined it for everyone by trying to push it towards further and further complexity and everyone having exactly what they wanted in their little list.
And I think
so I don't see
that's the problem, right? It's like when you listen to the thousand voices of the people who play your game, that's when you're never going to satisfy them. I would much like it's why when people like a little while ago people were saying like, oh well, they're looking for feedback on things coming into the General's Handbook or whatever the hell it was. Do you want to give feedback on the Dispossessed? And I was like, no, because I want to play the game. I don't want to feel entitled to the game. And that for me was way more important than just rocking around and having my like 2 cents put in on everything. But
wait, this show's called The Honest Wargamer, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you fucking wasted your opportunity, dickhead. if Games Workshop comes to you and says, "Do you want to shape the future of this?" No, I don't, because I don't want to feel like I own it. Yeah, fine, I get that, and I also get why people feel like they own it, because it's all their money and all their time, people make sacrifices to do Warhammer shit, right? I get all of that, but if someone's saying to you, "Hey, man, do you want to do this?" I suppose you got to make the decision as to whether or not you think that you'll have a better chance of getting something balanced than someone else, because you know that someone else is answering that phone call, and the person who's answering that phone call might not have intentions as pure as you. Yes, it's a time sacrifice and all of that, and there's an argument made for, well, I don't own this game, Games Workshop does. And look, because you don't get salty about it when Games Workshop do things you don't particularly like, then that's all well and good. But there's always the chance of like, well, you had the golden opportunity. You could have been the chosen one. We could have had Grugny fucking Duwaden smashing cunts, smashing friends for months now. Smashing people for months if you just answered the call of Grugny when it was off.
You know what, and that's fair. That is an 100% fair throwback on me. I'll wear that one right home. If Dispossessed seem underpowered, it's because I didn't give any feedback. So just jumping back a little while in the chat, Elfbro Hayden commenting like when we were talking about like cost of doing stuff. Let's not talk about how many $20 blister packs I had to buy to get 2 big units of Swordmasters and Phoenix Guard back when they were metal, and you needed 30 of them. So it's like even if they came, I think they came 3 to a packet or 2 to a packet, and it was like so you'd need $200 to fill out 1 unit of like repeated metal models. I did that with
it's the same one again. I got 3 poses.
Yeah, single pose models. At Combat Phase Podcast, I can't believe that I missed that you've subscribed for 12 months now. It's a whole year. Look at you. You're just about a year. Is someone walking at a year? For some reason, I compare all of our subscribers to babies. So I'm like, if you're a 1 year subscriber,
mate, you're just a bit clucky, mate.
I'm super.
Is that Kenny? Is that Kenny, the happiest Fire Slayers man in the universe?
Combat Phase Podcast, is that? I'm guessing probably.
Pretty sure that's Kenny. It's a great podcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's beautiful, clucky people. I'm super clucky. I'm mega clucky.
Yep.
But yeah, so a lot of people really excited about the colourful language.
Good.
But yeah, no, good. Some people making the decision to have lunch instead. Dad Hammer had 90 metal Eternal Guard. Oh God. Bless you. And I've met him too. He's the loveliest person. Like, he's so lovely. And I cannot possibly begin to imagine the pain that 90 metal Eternal Guard would have put you
Wait,
through.
Eternal Guard are the old Wood Elf ones.
Wood
yeah?
elves with they were like spears and shields, and they like could use spears and shields and stuff.
Yeah. The worst one with that is also not only was that punishment, but then they had the Treekin, which is like old school Kurnoth hunters.
Yeah.
That were all the worst models of ever, and you
Yeah.
had to pin the metal models. And then
Yeah.
they had the dragon that had 50,000 bits that hung off different angles. That if you didn't pin, just give up, man.
Yeah, like at some point,
You'd
just
get like
this is
I like
not worth it.
Yeah, I've been like metal models from way back, and then when people say, "Oh, but it's really expensive," and then you say, "Well, yeah, but it used to be metal, man.
Yeah.
Like Battlecry trebuchets in Lord of the Rings used to be a thing. Don't talk to me."
Just a fucking.
But
nightmare.
I'm
Hey,
also
look,
mindful. We could waste our time together whinging about people whinging, and that feels like
definitely.
it's
No,
it's a snake that eats its own tail.
It's like cathartic, but it's also like just the dumbest
Pointless.
thing in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. So,
100%.
but you're here to talk about Fire Slayers. That's why you're here. That's why we're together.
Nice.
Because, and are you excited about it? Are you excited about Fire Slayers?
Fucking oath.
Yeah.
Could not be happier, mate.
I
I realized that I didn't close the loop on my story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how I got into Fire Slayers.
How you got into Fire Slayers? Yep.
And how it's related to my infant child.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sitting there pottering around, building my $15 million army, slowly building it. And then a mate of mine was going to CanCon. This is not last year, year before.
Mm-hmm.
Mate of mine, shout out to Brod if he's listening.
Yeah. Look, hey, Brod is a lovely human who plays a fucked army. So, like, as in, like
a handful of fucked armies.
A handful.
Just in the Fire Slayers list he sent me, it was fucked.
He's a heavy Nurgle debuff player, and
who still got third in sports at CanCon.
Who's still got third in sports.
He's just that much.
He is a lovely man though. He's lovely, but he bruises like a peach. So every time I see him, because he does like jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or whatever the hell he does. Sorry, bro, I don't know what you do. He's always covered in bruises, so I'm convinced that his lovely partner is beating him. But it's because every time I see him, he's covered in like finger marks and bruises and stuff. So I figure that Brod is involved in some personal violence there. And if you are, you should get help, Brod, because no one deserves that. But yeah, sorry. So how your Fire Slayers army directly correlates to the birth of your child? Go.
Yeah. So I'd slowly been pottering away at Fire Slayers for a while, like buying units as I could be bothered. And then all of a sudden my missus got sick. And I'd organised to have a practice game for CanCon against Brod. So, Brod was, we're hanging out, ended up saying, yep, cool. He acknowledged that Ironjaw's biggest weakness is Fire Slayers, at the time at least. And so he went, all right, let's do a practice game, and you can teach me how to beat Fire Slayers, because I reckon I'll see a lot of them. Because this was back when people were like, I have 30 Volkite Berserkers, what are you going to do? And so I took the boring list, played against Brod, got really excited about it, and then all of a sudden my missus gets sick for a couple of, and I basically painted a whole army in 3 weeks over the middle of summer. So it was like Christmas time. It was Christmas time in Sydney.
Terror painting, wasn't it?
Yeah. What was that?
It was terror painting, wasn't it?
I don't know what that means.
Like you were painting from terror because you knew something was coming.
Oh, maybe. Just the fear in my eyes that I hadn't acknowledged. The fight or flight response just triggered. I just started cranking it out. And I ended up getting this Fire Slayers army. My Fire Slayers, I tried to paint them, tried to be a clever boy, and ended up just having a really involved painting scheme that just takes forever and doesn't look very good.
Yeah, but I'd say your Fire Slayers look quite nice. They got a whole.
That's because I'm dodgy as shit now. Like I've cut out all the long steps.
You're like just work faster and smarter rather than harder and longer.
Well, yeah, my new theory on army painting is you go ugly early. It's exactly the same as being a single man at a bar. Go ugly early, avoid disappointment, and you'll be done. And then if you need to go and get shiny things.
I'm so sorry. I'm just so glad I forgot about. I haven't seen you in a couple of months. I forgot about that phrase, and I fucking love it. Can we quote "That's you"? That's your phrase. Like
Fuck. Sure.
I'm saying like quote Mike, go ugly early on an army. Like if you know,
100%.
rather than having a couple of models that look fucking spectacular and the rest of your army's dirt, and then people notice the
Yeah.
rest of your army, just go
Yeah.
ugly, start messy, and then figure you'll go back and fix it later.
Would you know? I mean, you know that this story has built into it a massive takedown of the slowest painter that we know.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. You know, so
So
can we
yeah,
please
so
get there? Yeah.
I managed to smash out my entire army fully painted for my practice game against Broad
Mm-hmm.
for CanCon because my missus was basically like on the couch, useless for 3 weeks because she had morning
Very
sickness
unwell.
really hard. Yeah, very
at the
unwell.
At the time, did you know it was morning sickness?
Shit, no, we didn't know. we didn't know. So my missus is sitting there on the couch, alternating between she got morning sickness really hard, so alternating between the couch and the toilet. And I'm like, well, fuck it. If she's not going to do anything, I guess it's summer holidays. I got nothing to do. I'm off work. I guess I'll just paint war dollies. Painted my whole Fire Slayers army, and then she takes a pregnancy test on New Year's Eve when we're about to go rather drunk, and she goes, "Oh yeah, we can't. We're gonna be parents." Fine, I guess I'll quit smoking then.
Yep. But also that is very selfish. But also that meant for you, suddenly you're like, I'm gonna be a dad pretty soon. This is probably my last event, right?
Yeah, well, it was also my first competitive event of Age of Sigmar. So,
one and done.
So, I mean, yeah, the other thing that like sort of happened at that same moment. So I had a whole bunch of lads place. Shout out to the D3 Mortal Wounds boys. You're all heroes.
I've got a couple of D3 Mortal Wounds shirts. I've attended an event over here under the moniker of D3 Mortal Wounds.
Oh,
so
yes.
We came 7th for the record. We came 7th and got top order.
With Dispossessed?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Isn't that the only thing you can place with your Dispossessed? Wasn't that you've got 2 7s with your Dispossessed?
Yeah, I done do a good in 7th. I done do a good, a solid 7th. And just in case anyone was wondering, I just want to quickly pop this up here. Those people looking at the screen right now, Mike, and I just want to point out what I've done, is right now what they can see are the current stats for Dwarden in competitive events. Now, the lowest performing army is the KO on 40.7% win rate. Next up is...
R.I.P.
Yeah, rip. Rip in peace. Second, next performing is Fire Slayers. They're only in the mid-40s. I'm guessing that's going to go up now that they've got a book, and it seems like a pretty balanced competitive book too. Legion of Asgore at 58.3%, but Dispossessed with a 60% win rate. And now, I know what some people in the chat are going to say. I know what some people... Yeah, Jim, remembering the little commands I hid in there. I know what people in the chat want to say, and that is that Dispossessed have only been used at one event. And what I would say in response to them, as Dom Toledo taught us from Fast and the Furious, it doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile, it just matters who crosses that finish line first. And right now, Dispossessed are crossing the finish line first. And if you want to fight Vin Diesel, go ahead. Because he's the one that said it, not me.
Mate, Talladega Nights was on telly last night.
If you're not first, you're last.
If you're not first, you're last. That's it.
Okay, so sorry, going back. We keep getting distracted. Going back to your army, you decide...
That's so unlike us.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Go back to your army.
So
you go ugly early on your Fire Slayers. Your wife's unwell. She's just told you that she's pregnant. And you've got CanCon in your immediate future.
And then Jordan... Look, there's 2 versions of this story. Mm-hmm. Right? There's the one that's the better joke, and then there's the truer one. Jordan couldn't get his Stormcast finished, and so pulls it out of CanCon. So I buy his ticket and his room off it.
Yeah, and that room happened to be with myself, in fact.
And Brod.
And Brod.
At the amazing hotel where Brod will get married to his abusive partner at shortly.
Yes, definitely. Brod, looking forward to that wedding invite.
Too many in-jokes rolled into one.
Yeah, there's like 6 people and a one-legged duck that got that one, but wherever they are, I hope you like it. Now, the Jordan we're talking about is # more Stormcast than Jordo, who I don't...
Spider-Bite Jordan with 15 painted
Spider-Bite. I don't think he's finished painting his Stormcast yet, which means I think they've been going on 4 years unpainted. Pull your finger out. Anyway, so you rock up...
The moral of the story is I end up at CanCon with 2 Magma Droths before, and I suppose... So I took that to 2 different events. Like, Fire Slayers were a fucking slow army. Like, Jesus, they were slow. So sort of set myself the mission at CanCon of going, well, how do you, and at tournaments in general, like how do you finish?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so I don't know that you wanted to talk about, and I realized that we just had in jokes for half an hour and
No,
whinged about
yeah,
people.
whatever.
So if we want to talk Fire Slayers, like I was taking lots of magma dots because I wanted to, because I thought all of a sudden my dwarves get to ride dragons
That's
because
fucking sick.
Grimnir
Yeah, yeah,
headbutted a fucking god beast.
yeah.
Hell yes, I'm fucked. And just from day one, I was like, yeah, that's where I'm at. And then rubber meets the road, and you go, fuck. The only way that you can win with Fire Slayers is 120 bodies that have 4-up ignore
Yeah,
saves, and
like I
and then
played them just before that book
snore
came out, and
yourself.
that's fucked.
Yeah, and then you snore yourself to death, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you gonna do? So, I mean, I didn't always finish all my games, but I made a habit of, like, I think this probably broadly. I mean, if you don't think, I mean, if we're talking competitive war, if you don't think you can get your turns done in the time,
Mm.
don't play that army.
And that was actually
So,
something you and I spoke about quite a bit going into it, because Dispossessed are also a very slow army, and I want to
and you
try
win
and
in
get.
turn 5.
And yeah, and that's it.
Like,
They're an army
yeah,
that gets if they get the win, it's usually turn 4, turn 5. It's not early in the game, so getting through to turn 4, turn 5 is really important. Now, sometimes you get to turn 3 or turn 4, and it's been such a tight match, but it's all over bar the shouting at that point, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when you time out at an event before you get to that point. So when you time out and
there's something even worse, which is a version of that, which is you play for the timeout.
yeah, oh
And
yeah, that's
if you're playing for I know that you've had this conversation before.
no,
If you're
but yeah,
playing for the timeout, go fuck
oh
yourself.
yeah, definitely, and
Beyond
that's
beyond beyond that,
mm,
your job, like the social contract is, we're gonna finish. So, and the problem with Fire Slayers with that is, I don't slow down my turn, I slow down your turn. Like
yeah,
old Fire Slayers.
yeah,
You
definitely,
know, I've
because
got
old Fire
50,000
Slayers were like,
fucking beard save
I've
bullshit,
got
and
a
my only
re-rollable whatever followed by
yeah,
another save.
and the only way they win
Mm,
is by choking objectives and being boring.
yeah,
Like, so standout events from CanCon. I don't know if you know how good Magma Droths used to be against Vanguard,
mm,
like Vanguard Wing.
yeah,
Now, what's the one where you used to have 20 Liberators that drop down onto
yeah,
an
yeah.
objective and they immune to battle shock?
That was Vanguard Wing. So for those of you who never experienced this, it was
It
basically
was
a unit of 20, usually 30 Liberators that could get deployed within, and they just had to be within a certain range of a unit of prosecutors, but it didn't specify
yeah,
wholly, so you could just string them out, and people would plop, turn one would plop 30 Liberators like mixed into your army already in combat. And then I think
so that's it.
they could be buffed as well, because they started on the
Yeah.
table and it was a
Yeah, and
teleport.
you got your Lord Celestant that goes, nah,
Mm.
fucking no battle shock for me, mate.
Yeah, so
But the
they'd
best
be
thing
like,
about that is
yeah, go.
deploy straight into combat
Mm.
with monsters that do damage to hordes and high resilience things. So he's like, I'm going to out attrition you in combat. I was like, motherfucker, you just charged 2 units of 30 Volkite Berserkers
You're
and
going
all my
nowhere.
damage shit and 2 Magma Droths. You are going
Yeah.
to lose this war of attrition.
Yeah, you're gonna
And
hit.
then I'm still close enough to get the gold, so I'm going to get the objectives
Yeah,
and smash you.
you will
And it
punch
was,
the ever living shit out of me, but you have hit the most durable army in the game, and
yeah,
that's really what Fire
they
Slayers
were.
used to be, right? That actually used to annoy me, to be honest. Like Dispossessed, they've got the armor, they've got the craftsmanship. They're in all of the lore and the background. They are the artisans and the armorers. They're the ones with the best armor, the best equipment. And so I don't mind that Dispossessed only have 1 wound. I don't mind that they're not the punchiest army out there, because I like that they, like, if you look at them, if you look at the themes that we've got going on, like the Kharadron Overlords are the profiteers. They're all about gold. The Fire Slayers are the disciples of
Religious zealots, mate.
So yeah, they're the zealots. They're the ones that want to fight. And then you've got Dispossessed, who are very much like Hearth and Home, Arms and Armor. Like they're the builders. And I kind of love that you have that. And it always used to frustrate me that Fire Slayers were better, like had better
At the
saves,
thing that
were
at
more
the thing that
durable. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we're here to talk about Fire Slayers, and we still haven't really
We will.
talked about current
Yeah.
Fire Slayers.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
The one I want to talk to you about was: have you seen the part? Have you read the book yet? Like in depth? Have you read the fluff parts of the book?
Oh, I've seen a few of them.
So me being the look, I'm just not good at competitive War Dollies. So
Well,
I'm all about the fluff.
you're okay. You're okay. You're not bad. You did
Okay,
at that
I went
CanCon.
three. I've gone 3 wins. I've got 3 wins back to back at CanCon.
Yeah, yeah. And you.
It was a 5-game tournament, and I got 3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. That was with Fire Slayers, with 2 Magma Drots before
Yep.
they were cool. And
Yeah,
then,
before they were cool.
and mate, I killed 5 Bloodthirsters in 2 games. It was the
That's right. You got 2 Council of Bloods back to back. I remember that.
2
That was
Council of
great.
Blood back to back.
Great.
Yeah,
Great. What
I
more
loved
could Slayers want than to be killing gigantic death blood demons?
Yeah, and I timed out it didn't time out. End of game 5 against a 90 bloodletter list, and we both shook hands at the beginning of the game and went, "Oi, we're finishing, hey."
That's it. Yeah, because you were like 90 Volkites or 60 Volkites.
No, I was 60.
60 Volkites.
60 Volkites and a fuckload of half guard, maybe 70 Volkites.
Yeah.
Like lots, but not
not
the
not
bullshit.
120, and then versus 90 bloodletters, and you guys finished turn 5. Which again,
Well, I did the same. I did the same thing in the mirror match. Shout out to Josh Best, current CanCon sportsmanship champion.
Yeah, yeah.
We played at a tournament. I yelled at him at the beginning because I was a cranky man. I got my full berserker on, but then we shook hands, looked at each other, locked eyes, and went, "Everyone is laughing at us as the Fire Slayer mirror match game 5 at a tournament.
Yep.
Fuck all of these people. We are going to finish." And we finished an hour before other people, and we just went around. People were like, "Oh, how'd you go?" I was like, "Yeah, we got to turn 5."
Oh yeah,
Just
we were
like-
2 Fire Slayer armies that got to turn 5. Yeah, how about why aren't you guys done yet? Because if we can, why the fuck are you still playing?
Well, it does really help. We hammed that up a lot. We had a lot of fun with that. And at that point, they had a bar right next to our table, and we finished early.
Yeah.
We were well in. You were there.
I would say that we were in the probably the top few most drunk people there.
Yep.
It was a good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay.
But
look,
then
we've yes, go. Sorry, go.
Oh no, I'm just going to talk bullshit. Like it's just to round out the point. Like it's up to you to make your army interesting. But the old Fire Slayer book, and this is hopefully going to help the segue that I can feel you desperately trying to do, which is it was a negative playing experience for you and your opponent because your games were long. They didn't get, and
it was
so this new. Like it was fun, but it wasn't. They didn't play the way that I always pictured them playing in my head.
That I think for me that is the biggest discrepancy, and that's like what they've done with Flesh Eater Courts, right? Flesh Eater Courts did not play the way they're described. Now I'm not saying that currently they're not broken. Like they let's take the competitive busted element out of it. Flesh Eater Courts right now play the way that they are written, and I fucking love it. And finally,
just make a Ghoul King on Terror guy 600 points and move on with your lives.
Yeah,
everyone can complain about anything that they want, but that's the answer.
Well, you look at the 1200 point Corn Dragon, right? A Ghoul King on Terrorgeist with an
kicks the shit out of it.
With an average roll, a 400 point Ghoul King on Terrorgeist kills it before it gets a chance to attack every single time on an average roll. So it's definitely the kind of thing that I don't think you can just like brush under the carpet. However, fiction, like let's recognize that competitive War Dollies is not the only War Dollies. Fiction to play style, they now play that way. And looking at Fire Slayers, they look like, and that's what I would love to chat to you about right now. It looks like Fire Slayers now play the way that they have always been explained and described in the fiction. Now, but before we get there, the one thing I would like to throw your way. So you played Fire Slayers, and then after that you switched over to Iron Jaws.
Yes.
Now, I'm guessing the reason you switched to Iron Jaws was because you were sick of the negative play experience of Fire Slayers and were ready to like you wanted a more aggressive play style?
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Okay.
Like it was you play the game the way that you want to this same like full circle, right? I play the game because I want to have fun with my mates. Or I want to have fun with randoms that I don't know at a tournament while I'm half cut playing War Dollies. Like either way. And so I was kind of tired of I was kind of tired of my games taking forever.
Yeah.
And I was also a little bit tired of having to say, and then I get to roll, and then I get to roll again because of this, and then I get to re-roll this because of this, and because this many Volkite Berserkers have died, my armor save is this one now.
Yeah. So basically,
instead I just got to get pissed and yell "wire" at people, and then smash people with orcs.
Yeah, right. And you basically wanted to play the army that Fire Slayers had been sold to you as. Would that be a fair statement? Like Iron Jaws back prior to the new Fire Slayers book played the way that Fire Slayers should have played, right?
With one exception that I think a brute is still hard. Like one brute is still a bit more hardcore than a Volkite Berserker, and that's good.
Yeah.
All is well in the universe if that's true.
Yeah, very. If a Fire Slayer is more badass than a brute, things are probably not happening properly. Okay,
Yeah.
so that said, right?
Yes.
So you're
Thoughts on the new book?
you're a Fire Slayers player. You played
Yes.
them back when they were the durability icons. Then you swapped to Ironjawz chasing it. Sorry, LLV's just joined and asked if I'm enjoying the new table of stats. I am fucking loving the new table of stats with Dispossessed as the superior Dwarden. I don't think it's going to remain
with the
for very
little
long.
the racial tab down the bottom.
Yeah,
Slick work, LLV.
yeah, LLV's all over it. I think, sorry, LLV, the person that we're chatting to right now is Mike from Australia. He's the biggest fucking legend you'll ever meet. Mad keen Fire Slayers player. I also do believe that Dispossessed won't maintain their place very long because I think they've had a couple of bottom or low finishes in the last weekend. So we'll wait for those ones to hit the current stats. But, so you played Fire Slayers when they were durable, when they were re-rolling armor saves, forward up save after saves, fucking unkillable bastards who kind of could hit back but not massively. So how, like, that was your experience. You swapped to Ironjawz chasing the play style that you were expecting from Fire Slayers. How does the new book change Fire Slayers?
Core mechanic that changed. Well, the two things that I like the most about it. Yes, it makes them play how you want them to play.
Yep.
They feel more like Slayers now, and they've changed the beards. You can still play the hard to kill dwarves. You can still do that. You can still have Hearthguard Berserkers coming out of your balls. They've still, they got 2 wounds now, but a lot of the things that they've done in the book have made it much more slick as a way to represent what the things are. So they've used the tool set that they have, and instead of going, we've got a 4+ ignore, and we've got a this, and we've got a this, and you've got a re-rolling armor saves, the book is full of increases to armor saves rather than re-rolls.
Yeah.
And it's full of buffs, like direct buffs rather than beard saves and things like that. So and the multiple wounds is a better way of, in my opinion, of indicating tough than you get an ignore roll, because the ignore roll just takes time for no benefit to the playing experience. Whereas now it's like, I've got these dudes, and Volkite Berserk's the best change. They're better at hitting stuff.
Yep.
Yes, they're more points, but who cares? It's still 8 points a wound. They're cheap for what they do. Bit of mortal wound output, flexibility, some cool shit. 5 steel axes, if you were winning that way, whatever, man. Good for you. They've changed that, so it's gone now. Now they are just berserkers. The old thing that not Doomseekers, what are they called? The
Unforged.
Unforged.
Yeah.
What Unforged do? They attack you when they die.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that mechanic is much more representative of Volkite Berserkers are super angry, and they got FOMO so hard that they'll still try and punch you in they'll still try and punch you in the nuts when you've killed them. Yep. That to me is what they should be. And then you got Hearthguard Berserkers with still got the ignore, but fucking Hearthguard Berserkers hit like a fucking truck now, and that is exciting.
Yeah, and let's be honest, right? For me, one of the big things, Combat Phase podcast. Kenny's popping off just saying goodbye, but we're saying so many Dwarden about maybe shooting ones are coming back around. I would be fucking very excited for that as a Dispossessed player. I would love to see it.
Or a Hearthguard, mate. Or a Hearthguard. You can make him battle line. Don't even worry.
You're a Slayer army with some shooting. Fuck right off. You're about as useful as a fart in a hurricane. I want to see Dispossessed shooting be the bee's knees again, and for KO to take the
motherfucker, you are going
place.
into the book of grudges right now.
Yeah, but 100%. I think that okay, so love you, mate. See you in a little bit.
Bye, Kenny.
See you, Kenny. But I think one of the things for me that really excites me, seeing them with 2 wounds, right? That's way more representative of them. I would believe that a dispossessed in their armor, they got a better chance of stopping it. But if it gets through, they're probably cooked. An axe to the chest is probably taking a dwarf warrior or a dwarf ironbreaker down. However, I would believe that Volkite Berserkers, that Fire Slayers, they are more they're more likely to get hurt, but they're also more likely to shrug off that wound. And that for me, that's where giving them 2 wounds is just perfect. It fits their fluff. I hate the word fluff, and I just use it. It fits their fiction and their background. It fits the way they're described, and it gives them a much different play style. So yeah.
Well, you're not gonna have blobs of 30 Volkite Berserkers anymore. One, because they cost 500 points.
Yeah.
But you know, it means that you have to think a little bit more about. And I know that this is a thing that I don't know. I'm fangirling pretty hard right now,
Mm-hmm.
being on the show. But Rob talks about it when he says like, there's not much thinking with I have Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. Cool, that's about to go up to 600 points. So
Mm-hmm.
Flesh Eater Courts players are going to have to think. But
Yeah.
now Fire Slayers players are going to have to. But Fire Slayers players are going to have to do the same thing. Like, what are you going to do to win? Because
Yeah.
now I'm going to blob up on an objective with a tunnel boy and sit there with 30 unkillable dwarves and bore everyone to death and make my opponent hate me. That's no longer a strategy.
For me, Fire Slayers feel very much like the Slanesh release, in that, like, if you look at the Fire Slayers, right, they have released what I would consider a wonderful book. I think it is a perfect balance of, like, narrative stuff for narrative players, competitive. I think they're like Skaven. I think they are a very competitive army. They've got a lot of things that they can play off of. You can build a win condition list out of it. You can build a toolbox list out of it. And one of the things that myself and a couple of others have been talking about recently is that we think that Flesh Eater Courts at the moment are dominating, but that Skaven is going to really quickly catapult above them. Because Skaven, I think, have the tools. Flesh Eater Courts have a number of tricks, but it's a bit like you're not really seeing Garviel Shoreheart like shore charge lists topping podiums anymore. And that's because now that people know the trick, they know how to play against it. So you're not as likely to go 5 wins at a tournament. I think that it's the same.
Tricks like win conditions and tricks tend to have hard counters.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
so,
I think
I have a zombie dragon on Terrorgeist. Fucking sweet. I'm gonna feed it a Magmadroth. It's gonna kill itself. Good chat.
Yep. And I think that Fire Slayers
you allocated 30. You allocated. I think that I don't know how they're gonna FAQ this, but if you allocate a wound on a 4-up, it bleeds on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Fucking.
So you could.
You did 48. You did 48 wounds. You cheers. But I don't think it's going to work that way. I think they're going to FAQ it otherwise, unfortunately, and much to the chagrin of me. But like, because that's bullshit as well. Like, the thing, if you're relying on bullshit things to win, and I'm not saying that Flesh Eater Courts are generally bullshit. It's more.
But if you're relying
correctly pointed,
if you're relying on a trick like that, it is very unlikely that you're going to walk away with it because it'll be changed, it'll be tied out. Whereas I think Fire Slayers have a great toolbox. They've got a lot of shit going on. And for me, that really fucking excites me. Now, the other thing that excites me, and I'll jump back to this conversation a little bit later for those who hang around with us, but I just want to quickly pop this up before we flick over into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. And that is that we're a little bit later in the show. So not right now, because I've only got Mike for a short amount of time, because I understand that you are currently talking to us while you're at work. Which is just the most fucking Australian thing ever. But if we look at
it's end of month. I'm going to the pub. Like I'm going straight from here to the pub. So you're keeping me from beer.
Yeah, I'm keeping you from a delicious cozy, which I haven't yet been able to find. Anyone in Canada, anyone in Vancouver, if you can find a place that sells Kosciuszko beers, please let me know. I am fucking desperate.
Anyone in Seattle?
Yeah, actually Seattle too, because I'll be swinging down there.
Anywhere West Coast, hook him up.
I need some cozies. I'm struggling. So just this. So the left and rightmost results. Let's just ignore those for a second. What we want to look at is the ones right in the middle. The Bris Vegas Open. It had 90 plus players, and it was taken out by Fire Slayers. Now,
with 2 Magmadroths, you all laughed. You all laughed.
Now, I used to give you shit, Mike. I used to give you a lot of shit because you insisted on running Magmadroths before they were cool. And
dude,
everyone gave
this list is almost more what I took to Sydney Slaughter.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the list that took out Bris Vegas Open is almost identical to the list that you took to a tournament pre-new list.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Wow.
The differences here are. Sorry.
Yeah. No. We'll jump on the list in just a second. The one thing I want to point out before we do is over the weekend, and there will have been more events than this. If I missed it, I'm sorry. Please hit me up. Send me through the results because I would love to talk about them. Looking at this here, we have 9 potential top spots, and the vast majority of the armies in there are almost the only other armies in there are Daughters of Cain, Skaven Tide, and Flesh Eater Courts with 1 Nurgle showing, right? So Fire Slayer's taking that spot right there in the middle. You can see it, that little number 1 right there. That is fucking huge. So I want to pull up the list. Hold on 2 seconds while I flick through to this one. There we go. Okay, so I've pulled up the list now. So
I'm fangirling so hard over this list,
yeah,
man.
it's getting you a little bit frothy on the inside.
Yeah. So look, so the way I think it works,
Hmm.
and look, I can't pretend to know because I'm not very good at war dollies, but like the way that this works, Vostag is the movement lodge. So they're the ones that get an extra 6-inch run, and the general trait lets them run and charge.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you've got a unit of 30 Hearthguard Berserkers. Because of the battalion, they can pile in and attack twice with their broadaxes. So
Lords of the
they're getting
Lodge was a
6
popular battalion even before the new book.
it
So
was underpointed before.
yeah.
It was horrifically
Now
underpointed before.
and let's be honest, all they did in the new book is fairly point Lords of the Lodge, and everyone went, yeah, well, it's still pretty fair, so I'll just fucking take it anyway.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Rune Master used to be a tax, and Rune Master's not a tax anymore.
Yeah,
'Cause
for
now
those,
he can cast. Now
yeah,
he can cast prayers to Grimnir, and the
he's
Ash Cloud rune that the Rune Smiter's got lets you do some
mm,
dispelling nonsense.
it's so
Just a
for
quick one
those.
for Andrew on this.
Mm.
Sorry,
No, go. What were you saying? Quick one for Andrew.
quick one for Andrew on this one. He's a Magmadroth trait short. He can have one on both because he's got a battalion.
Yeah, so Andrew, who took this list, Mike and I were talking
Andrew,
before, and Mike was like, he's missing a mount trait. So both of
yeah,
his Magmadroths could have had a mount trait. Now maybe he realized it and submitted it before, but like having a look at it, right? Like looking at the list, the Rune Master. The reason that we were saying that the Rune Master used to be a tax is you used to choose an enemy unit, and that unit got to reroll ones to hit or wound.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
reroll ones to hit,
Oh,
right? Or wound, or
yeah,
whatever the fuck it was. You gave an opponent unit rerolls, and in
yeah,
return, if you got a hero within the Rune Master within a certain range, you got to reroll hits against this unit. So
yeah,
basically, you were giving your opponent a massive buff for very little return. It was fucking terrible. Now that the Rune Master
yeah.
actually has a bunch of other stuff about him, he is a reasonable unit, and it's not like you're not just paying the battalion cost, and it used to be you're paying the battalion cost and the Rune Master and the buff to your opponent. You are now the Rune Master is a worthwhile addition to the army, even though he doesn't
Yeah,
have a
man.
mustache. Fucking
Yeah.
weird, right? No mustache.
Yeah, but it's that Chaos Dwarf bullshit, man.
Yeah, fucking chaos.
He's
Dwarf
got a bit of that
bullshit.
Chaos Dwarf vibe.
Yeah, he's real close. I wouldn't put one in my list only because I think he's a piece of shit.
What's
And he's
the-
got a real
yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And all Chaos Dwarfs are pieces of shit, mate. We can agree on that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, definitely.
you're a dispossessed guy.
You're a fire slayer.
My dispossessed is still on. Well, my dispossessed is still on screen, mate.
Yeah, that's true. Your dispossessed will get there in the end. Oh wow, so some people actually tuning in and saying that there potentially might be a way to find some Kosciuszko beers, which I'd be really excited about. But looking at, so this is the
Let's end the podcast now and just go and
just fuck
chase
it
down.
off. I'm off. I've put the whiskey down. So for those who are watching along at home, or for those who are listening to the podcast, it's a Fire Slayer's army, which is the Vostag Lodge. We spoke about it just before. It's the Movement Lodge. He's packing a Rune Father on Magmadroth. The general trait's Fiery Endurance with the Vosax, and the mount is an Ashhorn Ancient. He's got a Rune
So
Smiter.
that trait, trait is run and charge.
Run and charge. Okay, so you've got the Movement Lodge.
All units that start their movement phase within 12 inches of him. So you've got the big base on the big drop, and then you've got the Ash Cloud rune, which gives you, so the other Magmadroth lets him re-roll armor saves for all Magmadroths that are close to him. So I'm imagining that they're sending both Magmadroths around together, but they don't have to.
Yeah, I mean,
Rune Suns do the same sort of shit now, where they like play off.
Cool. So Rune Suns work well together. Rune Smiters are great for that buff, and Rune Fathers are the OG combat power. Like where your Rune Suns were kind of like the Wilders, like the Berserkers. The Rune Fathers usually had less attacks, but they were much higher in damage. And might I add, his model is one of the. You know how you have models that can hit stuff from the back of a mount, and you're like, how the fuck do they do that? That person's weapon or whatever. The Rune Father, since the model was released, is the only model I believe can hit you from the back of his mount, because that Latchkey Grand Axe is like longer than the mount. It's like a 4-inch freaking piece of weapon. So yeah, obviously he's a real rough one to be putting on the back of the Magmadroth and flicking forward turn 1 with a Rune Smiter giving him rerolls. Another Rune Smiter with a Forge Key, which is, I'm guessing, to teleport a unit to tunnel up.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, with one of those.
Probably the Hearthguard Berserkers. Vostag Lodge also get as a trait that they get +1 to charge. Volkite Berserkers also get +1 to charge. So
and they
it's,
reroll.
I reckon you
they're re-rolling ones to charge, or re-rolling one dice when they charge? Do they take that
No,
off?
no, no, no. So this is the same thing as all the fire slash.
Mm.
They just made it quicker. It's less dice rolls now.
Right.
So it's just +1 to charge for when you've got a horn.
So
Done.
the turn they pop up, they're looking for sixes to charge.
Sevens.
Sorry, sevens to charge with a reroll, which seven's your most average roll. They're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, they're probably getting it. So you got 30 Hearthguard Berserkers that can theoretically pile in an attack twice. That he's shoving all the way up your ass to the units that you have.
Yep.
And then
Which
he's
are probably, let's be honest, they're also probably being tag teamed in with a Rune Father on Magmadroth as well. So like you're looking at a very violent 1-2 punch turn 1 or turn 2 if they choose to hit you with it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. This would be a what? 4-5 drop list. Lords of the Lodge would be the Rune Smiter, Rune Master, Battlesmith.
5 drops.
Five
drops.
Right.
Yeah, because you got 4 things that aren't in the battalion.
Gotcha. Yep. So it's a 5
Actually,
drop.
no. So Rune Smiter makes it a 4 drop because if he tunnels,
with one.
If he tunnels with one of the units of Volkite Berserkers instead of the half guards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've run a list very similar to this before when Fire Slayers didn't dominate everyone. So AOS 2 comes out and everyone was complaining that Fire Slayers couldn't win. I'm currently in AOS 2 undefeated with Fire Slayers with a list very similar to this before they gave me all of the new sweetness.
So you're very excited for
I just didn't have the balls to take 2 Magmadroths because I'm just not enough. But I'm committed to being more of a man now that a Queenslander is doing this.
Yeah, but I mean, look, even in this list, right, those 2 units of 10 Volkite Berserkers, to be decent, like to be reasonable, the Volkite Berserkers, you need to take them in a 20 or a 30, right? Now,
back in the day.
Yeah, in the day. 10 Volkite Berserkers is now 20 wounds, which is that's reasonable to run in a 10. It's the same thing when they change Bloodletters. Now, I know that Khorne players are going to be upset with me about this, but when they changed Bloodletters only doing mortal wounds on a 6, it meant that taking them in a 10 is useful. And so finally, for the first time in a very long time, Volkite Berserkers at minimum size are something other than just chaff. And I think that's fucking great.
I rated them before, but they were good as chaff. Whereas now they're probably Volkite Berserkers probably aren't going to be killing a bunch of shit, but they're also not awful for claiming objectives. But they can also, just say you do tunnel your 30 Hearthguard Berserkers and you get double turned while they're underground.
Yeah.
Your Volkites can probably screen out the stuff that's still on the table from getting damaged too hard before your counterpunch comes in with your Hearthguard jumping up and saying surprise. Yeah, so I'm thinking that's. It's
tight, man. I think it's good. Yeah. I think it also, looking at the list, if you get something like Total Commitment or whatnot, it's durable. Like it can shield and screen quite well with 20 Volkites and set up the things that need to be set up behind.
I think the movement lodge, so Vostok, I think it gives you the flexibility as well.
Especially when
if you go Total Commitment, you're not screwed. Especially.
If you're a 4-inch movement army, like Dispossessed, having played a 4-inch movement army, you need movement. So it's why I think Dispossessed that aren't taking the pickaxe are making a mistake. Now, you're not going to use it every game, but it is the thing that lets you move across the board to have some board threat and board presence, which is what here the Rune Smiter and then the Lodge gives. So I feel it. Also, I mean, piling in and attacking twice.
He also won the event. Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, definitely.
Flesh Eater Courts came second. Yeah, I don't know what his matchups were, but I think this list, because Volkite Berserkers, when they die, can still hit your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. You're not, I don't care if your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist rolls in and goes, all right, so I'm going to smash your unit of 30 Hearthguard Berserkers. Okay, cool. How many mortal wounds did you do? 48. Cool. So 24 wounds go through, that's 12 dead. I'm still hitting you with 18 models that compile and attack twice.
Yep.
With the broad axes, if you use the Rend rune in the turn when they attack, a freeze, anything that's 3s to hit, you can make that 2s if you want. You can get all this reroll to wound. Yeah, reroll to wound is all over this guy's list as well.
Yeah.
And all right, cool. So you killed 12 Hearthguard Berserkers. Sick. I got what's that?
So many attacks.
I got 4 attacks per Hearthguard Berserker now into you at 3s, -1 or -2, 2 damage. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is the list that stops Flesh Eater Courts.
Oh, I shouldn't know.
However, I think the thing is that Flesh Eater Courts had one trick, and between this and
Mm.
Slaanesh, we now have two forces that very much, I think, belong on the top tables. And if they
Yeah.
pop it, they're good.
Yeah.
Biological Hippo saying that they're not holding out for the Gobblepalooza meta then. Can I just say that at this same event, there was someone who had a 31 drop army with like 18 Snotling pump wagons. And
That's the hero that we need.
the hero of the event, and got
Yeah.
one win as well. Got a win.
Fucking got a win though.
Oh, I like
With 20 pump whack.
yeah. I just got and that's all you need. You don't need more than one win. If you're rocking 20 odd 15, I don't even know how many it was. If as far as the story can be concerned, it was a whole army of pump wagons. You get one win with that, you're the fucking hero that we deserve and need right now. So massive shout outs there. I tried to get a copy of the list in time before, but I didn't have enough time to check out.
The photo is enough on AOS.
Check out AOS Shorts. Dan, the sexy love robot himself, has a wonderful photo up there. And it's ludicrous. And not only do I fucking love that someone built and painted that army, because that would have been a nightmare, but then won one. Yeah, I'd say Hypnocracken, you're 100% right. I think Grits can go 4-1. I also think that Gloomspite can go 5. I think the problem is that they're a bit like Skaven in that a lot of the shit they rely on is unreliable. Whereas you look at something like Fire Slayers and Flesh Eater Courts, their abilities are reliable. Right, Mike?
So the thing that I reckon with Gits that I'm seeing a lot of, and in our group, none of us take War Dollies particularly seriously. So the guy who's playing Gits in our group, I'm building a Troggoth horde, and a mate of mine's doing only Squigs because we just don't like to win games of Warhammer. But I still think that they're a nuanced army that has massive swing. So I think that they're going to be the army that you come up against someone who has, like the guy who won it with 2 Colossal Squigs back in the day. Like, it's a nuanced army, and you need to be fucking Loctite on your shit. And I think that while we're talking about Fire Slayers, I think this is a kind of list that I love this list, and I think we'll see a shitload of this list in the early days because Hearthguard Berserkers with their Horde discount are fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see a lot of lists that look a lot like my list for round 1 looks a lot like this, except instead of a second Magma Droth, I've got some tunneling shooty boys.
Yep.
Because I just, every time I've played them, when you play Flesh Eaters or you're playing Daughters or whatever, being able to pop up and go surprise and blast off their buff heroes makes that when the hammer hits, the hammer can hit harder with taking their buff pieces off.
It's also, I think, like personally as a dispossessed player, I think it's really important having a unit that scares your opponent. Like the amount of times that I've tunneled a unit with the Ancestral Pickaxe, or when I was taking a Celestant Prime in my list, I'm like the actual unit itself is nowhere near as valuable as the emotional stress you put on your opponent and their terror of like where it's going to pop up, when, what it's going to damage, being able to pop up and reliably damage what they target. And that's why I think that, like, pop and charge is great, but it still relies on a dice roll. It's rerollable, but it's relying on a dice roll. Whereas pop and shoot, you get. Like, just full stop, it happens. It's not always the most amazing thing, but the amount of times that your opponent has to leave a bunch of things strung out across their back line to guard against that rear pop, and then I'm like, fuck, I'm a 4-inch move. I'm not popping up behind you because you just move away from me and I can't catch up. I'm coming up right in front of you. I'm just going to stand there, shoot you, and then be a speed bump for the rest of the game. But
the difference between your speed bump and my speed bump is that your speed bump has better armor save than mine. Like,
That's true.
I'm tunneling up Auric Halfguard with 2 armor. I guess I'm just going to stand here with a 400-point unit and die like a bitch now.
You're a speed bump.
Fuck, it was worth it because I killed your hag queens.
You're not so much a speed bump as you are like, like when you're driving along, and in Australia, hitting roos while you're driving through the country is actually a really big fucking problem. A mate of mine once...
Seriously, if you're a tourist, don't drive without at dusk or dawn without knowing what you're doing, or you will hit a kangaroo.
It's only like the hour 30 of dusk or dawn. I swear to God, if you're driving through the country, like, just don't do it at those times. Like, I'm quite careful about it, and I have hit 6 roos in my lifetime. One time, like 3 of them in one trip. So I hit 2 individually, and then I hit, and like I was like, fuck yeah, my car's still rolling. And then the third one went up through
I know this is
the
I
actual
know this
thing.
is a diversion from talking about Warhammer, but have you thought about being better at driving?
I've also thought about maybe putting like a cage on the front of my car. I've thought about a lot of things. However, the third roo killed my like of those. I hit 6 roos. 3 of them killed the car I was driving. So roos are terrifying.
And
But
wombats are worse. If it had been
oh
one
yeah, no,
wombat straight up, you're done.
like
Anyway,
a wombat. Yeah, a wombat's like a cannonball. A wombat is worse.
it's like a little fairy Bastillodon.
That's it. 100% right. Yes, a wombat is just a Bastillodon. Yes, I'm glad that we can put a note under that one. Yeah, like deer or moose in Canada. I think that's fair, except the problem with deer or moose, they're not attracted to headlights. In Australia, kangaroos are actually attracted to the headlights.
Nah, I'm pretty sure that deer are just as bad as kangaroo, to be honest.
Oh,
Because
really?
they're like, yeah, I think it's the exact same thing. You've heard the term deer in the headlights because they
Yeah.
don't jump out of the fuck. They just sit
What's
there
it?
and go, I wonder if the car wants to be friends.
The car might want to come and say hello to me. But see, the thing is, right? I've hit 6 kangaroos. I don't know how many kangaroos I've had jump into the side of my car because they see the lights and they're just like, oh, that's the direction that we need to go, and then they just bang into the side. Yeah, LLV. I've also heard tell that deer are basically like a cannonball on matchsticks. So if you hit it, the legs hit the bonnet and the moose is fine, but the moose itself is a cannonball that comes through the windscreen and fucks you up. I've heard that. Terrified of driving in this country. But aside from that, you're where we the reason we got there is because my Iron Drakes compared to your Auric Hearthguard, not quite the same.
Just a standard Mike and Dan
Just
cheeky little
that's just
segue.
a tiny little segue, little diversion.
Lean into the segue, mate.
It's fine. Okay, so we've had a little chat about this list that took out first event that I'm guessing Fire Slayer.
First event. What a fucking superstar!
It was a 90
Gets
plus
the
player
players
event.
onto the podium. What was it? Fuck.
Yeah,
Queensland
yeah.
knows how to
I'm just gonna pop
Warhammer.
this back up. So for those of you looking at home, it's the middle ones that we're looking at there. First Fire Slayers, Flesh Eater Court snapping at their
Just
heel.
give
and
me,
Daughters of
Dan.
Cain
Just give me
third.
1 sec. I got to do an adult job thing.
Yeah, no, go
Just
do
gotta
it.
tell my boss.
You're doing a
Might
huge
be a bit
favor for me. Like for those of you looking at the stats at home, the Bris Vegas Open, like look at the fucking stats from this last weekend, just gone of results. Daughters of Cain featuring 4 times out of 9. Flesh Eater Court's there as well. Skaven in the top. It's a massively competitive line, and like looking at it, it's like the Fire Slayer.
It's not like they're shit people either. Like Gemma knows what she's fucking doing with that. Didn't she win an event like last?
Yeah, Gemma. I think Gemma came in second with those Flesh Eater Courts. She tops regularly with a Nurgle.
It's a tough field, and Queenslanders sure as shit know how to play some more dollies.
I would say and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit from this because I know a lot of New South Wales War Dollies players and I'm friends with them.
Nah, best scene in the country, mate, and I'm one of the Sydney fans.
Yeah, but I genuinely actually think that there are like person for person, human for human, there are more top tier War Dolly players in Queensland than in New South Wales. Now I love New South Wales. I've got more friends in New South Wales than I do in Queensland. But honestly, like just looking at the
don't try and like what you're saying is you're punching them in the dick and then saying, but I also love you. Just fucking lean into being a dick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm saying that I love them as people, but as War Dolly players, Queensland's got the skinny on them. In the same way that I support New South Wales in the state of origin every year, but I know that Queensland's probably going to win. And yes,
are you sure about that this year, mate?
Mate, nah, fucking, we got it this year. Sorry for those who don't know. State of Origin is the biggest competitive rugby league event in the country. Excuse me, it's massive. World
bigger than the World Cup.
And it every year it's 3 games, and over the last 15 years it's been very Queensland. So New South Wales has been on the struggle street, but we're looking good for this year. But yes, sorry, Gemma took out Heat 2.
The diversions continue.
Gemma took it. Yeah, we're teaching you a little bit about Australian sport. But Gemma took out Heat 2 with Flesh Eater Courts. I think Flesh Eater Courts took out Heat 1 as well. So I think Flesh Eater Courts came in first in Heat 1 and Heat 2, which if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. However, she is an amazing War Dolly player. We actually had her on the stream at CanCon commentating. She knows her shit. She's played a number of different armies. She's incredibly competitive. So you give someone with that level of skill Flesh Eater Courts and they're always going to fuck people's shit up. But looking at... I'm sorry, Dad Hammer, mate. They're all lucky that you're not there with your Scourge Privateers, because otherwise you'd obviously be cleaning house with those Scourge Privateers.
What are you talking about? They're unlucky that a legend like that isn't taking his Scourge privateers on the fucking road all over the world playing awesome games.
Oh yeah, yeah, and also like Dad Hammer is the loveliest bloke as well. Like just super friendly, super lovely. So like, and that's the worst thing. He plays the most competitive army Scourge privateers. So he's fucking your shit up while all you want to do is give him a cuddle and talk to him and be his best friend. Now, before we go, Mike, I know that you've got work and you're actually, Mike, you're calling in from work right now, are you not?
No, look, I work in sales and I just closed the deal while we were talking. So we're all good, man. Like I have.
Sorry, I'm sorry. You closed a deal while you're talking war dollies with me. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I just made my number for the fiscal quarter
Great.
by being by just sitting here talking Warhammer.
Sitting
So
here
this is
talking
about,
war dollies. That's where it was at.
I'm all done. I got no other work that I need to do today. So I'm
Great.
good to go for as long as you want to go.
Great.
I've got no
Oh, mate, look.
if you want.
What I would actually love. So, for those in the chat, sorry, Dad Hammer pointing in. Yes, Gemma's partner took out Heat 1, I believe. Is that correct? So Gemma took out Heat 2 and her partner took out Heat 1. That's a strong pedigree right there. Now,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if your significant other sat around and also played Warhammer? Can you imagine how fucking awesome?
like, yes, but also there's enough competition in most households as it is. I think the last thing I need to do is be emasculated and defeated as a war dolly player by the person that I'm also like with.
Just
Like,
fucking search your feelings and stop being such a beta bitch, man. Just like, if your missus is better than you, she's better than you, and that's fine.
just understand it. Okay.
Don't define your man. Don't define the quality of you as a person by how good you are at war dollies. That's the whole fucking problem with all the neckbeards anyway.
Define yourself by your ability to be a human being and not be a fucking Essendon supporter. Which is sorry, that's a little.
But there are some real Aussie references coming into this. Talked about kangaroos and wombats. Talked about multiple codes of football.
Okay, so for the record, this is going to be a very Aussie show. I'm not only talking to you, but this is the start of my shit from Australia that should be in the Mortal Realms segment. So at the end of the show, what I'm going to do is, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that every week I would start doing like a segment on like weird Australian shit.
Bastiladons are...
Yeah, Bastiladons are basically like a furry Bastiladon is just a wombat, right? So at the end of this show, I'm going to do a segment on the bunyip. Because that, I think, if anything, should be a fucking critter in the mortal realms rocking out a gur or the realm of life, it would be a bunyip. So from now on, every week, I'm going to do a shit that should be in the mortal realms from Australia. This one's a bunyip. We'll go through a few others, so hang around for that one. It's going to be in a little while, though. We're not doing it right now. The Goanna, mate, Goannas are going to be there. Cassowaries are going to be there. I have a list of terrifying shit to go through. Just things that are nightmare fuel.
Like, even nondescript Australian animals are terrifying. Did you know that platypus have poisonous barbs on their paws or whatever?
Yeah, like legit. I remember being a school student at a little trip thing, and they were showing us it, and then like one of the camp leaders got stung by one, and I watched them just vomit all over themselves for 2 hours until the ambulance could get there and take them away. Platypus are cute, but I think it's the females that have the poison as well. I don't think the males are poisonous. And it's just goddamn terrifying. Yeah, in Australia, it is just Jesus Christ. So, yes, those in the chat, if you want to drop me a message on Twitter or Facebook or anything, tell me the shit that you want me to cover in that segment. I 100%
Blue-ringed octopus.
Blue-ringed octopus. Oh, my God, yeah.
Just quick last segue.
Yeah.
Did you see that fucking dumb woman who was deciding to pat...
A blue-ringed octopus?
Yeah. It was in like a little waiting
and she's
got or whatever, and she's playing with it, and they're filming it on the internet. Every Australian's like,
so a blue for those.
Do you want to shit your bowels out of your body? Because that's how you get there.
For those of you who are in the chat, a blue-ringed octopus is one of the most gorgeous looking and adorable octopuses. But even from like a child, their bite has enough venom to kill a human being. It's one of those things where if you call the hospital, they call 000, which is our equivalent of 911. They will try to get you to like move the person as close to the ambulance as possible because they need to give you the anti-venom like as soon as they can.
Or they'll say how long ago. You'll say 10 minutes. They'll say we'll be there later, but we're not going to send an ambulance. We're just going to come pick up the body.
Yeah, it's like
you're cooked. Give the person do whatever you can to make them happy while they die. Thanks for coming.
Yes. Dad Hammer is actually saying the white tip spider that causes necrosis. Fun fact, that's what Jordo from #MoreStormcast than Jordo, who has not painted his Stormcast army. Jordan, paint your Stormcast army. That's what he got bitten by. If you go back like a month or so in the Australian videos, you'll see he got bitten by it and his hand just like fucking looked like it had a plum growing out the side of it. Yes, everything Australia wants to fucking kill you. But there's a video of this tourist who picks up a blue-ringed octopus in her hand. And the thing is, the reason they're called a blue-ringed octopus is when threatened and when they feel scared, the blue rings on them go from just this deep blue to this like bright, really neon blue. And that's how you know you're about to get bit. And she somehow like gets it off her hand just before it goes apeshit and would have probably killed her. And like, it's terrifying. If you come to Australia, just don't pick up our animals unless you know that they're not poisonous. Assume everything is mortally poisonous unless you are told otherwise. Because it's just a terrible idea. Truthin is asking, did I open an AOS stream or Nightmare Fuel? Well, look, we're talking about a lot of things. Someone's saying that LLV saying that he'd give Jordo a pass on painting his Stormcast if he had necrosis. Just gonna stay inside.
No. Come on, mate. This is not everyone gets a trophy. Like, Jordan, harden up, paint your fucking Stormcast.
You've had 4 years. You've had like 4
You've had 4 years.
For fuck's sake.
You've painted it less than a mod.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Come on, mate.
Fitter
You've been
painting
single for
one
the
model a
majority of that time. Come on.
Yep, good. People talking about all of the different ones. Next week there'll be a lady that puts her head in a shark's mouth, says LLV. But let's get back to Fire Slayers. We've been talking about what's fucked up. Now, that's why I've got you here. For those who've joined us late, Mike is an old school Fire Slayers player right from the very, very beginning. He was an early adopter of them. We've gotten distracted a whole lot, so we've listened to it. We've talked about a whole lot of shit and basically waxed lyrical.
It's mostly just been everyone listening to you and I talk shit. That's great.
Mate, that's what we do. But what I would like to look at now is before we came on, what I asked Mike to do was, because I've always given him a lot of shit about the fact that back when Magmadroths were terrible and 120 Volkite Berserkers or 90 Volkite Berserkers was the only way to win games, he insisted on taking Magmadroths. Insisted on
And you fucking laughed at me.
I did.
You fucking laughed at me.
And for the record, you knew they were shit as well. You were just trying to make them a thing. It's a bit like Legally Blonde or Clueless or whatever it's from. Just stop trying to make it happen.
Stop trying to make Fresh a thing. Stop trying to make Fresh happen.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's never going to happen. And
I also tried to get women to like me in the late 90s.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we watched a lot of the same shows then. But the thing that I would say is that now, for the first time, like, Magmadroths are actually kind of baller. So I challenge you to write a reasonably competitive list that maxed out on Magmadroths. That was just...
I didn't quite max out.
Well, I think
Sorry, I failed the brief, because you can have 5. But I've had 4.
You can have 5. Oh, if you take the Lodge, that gives you an extra.
The Lodge.
But as far as... Yeah, go.
The best thing about that Lodge has nothing to do with the 5th Magmadroth, because you're not taking 5 fucking Magmadroths. Too many points. It's still a game that centers around capturing the gold. Like, you still got to get some fucking objectives.
That's it.
So I reckon 4 is the sweet spot. What you do get to do is you do get to have Magmadroth traits on all of them, which is...
Yeah, so that's what we're going to look at right now. And in the chat, Cool Bunny, Veronica, that's Mean Girls. It's Mean Girls. Stop trying to make fetch happen. Back when Lilo was beautiful, before she kind of went off the rails. But to be honest, the fact that I know that she's a drug fucked mess kind of makes me love her just a little bit more, because I'm like, oh, she's just like us.
Nah, she's not quite like us though. Have you seen the videos of her trying to like steal children from their parents in Syria?
I have not.
She's a horrific human.
Okay.
She's like in broken Arabic, following refugee families around. Steal their children. Okay. She's fucked.
But you know what? I guess the question is, how successful does someone have to be before they can go completely off the rails? You know, like I feel like we should just go, you know what? She did well. You deserve to be this crazy because you did this well. Hypnocracken asking, does
So
anyone
4
have
Magmadroths.
so yes, yeah, does anyone have the Nurgle list from Border Wars? I actually do think I have it on for this evening's show. I will get to it. LLV saying that he'd let Lilo steal him. I bet you would. I bet a lot of people would. But this list, so this is the list when I challenged you to come up with a list that maxes out your Behemoth slots. This is the list that you came up with me. You came up with for me. And now I'm looking at 4 Auric Rune Suns on Magmadroths, all with Rimslayer Javelins, and all with the same Magmadroth trait. And then,
Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. If they FAQ it, that you have to pick different ones.
well, I think at the moment, Flesh Eater Courts can give the same mount trait to multiple mounts. So I would assume that if that's what they've made the call with Flesh Eater Courts, they're going to do something similar with Fire Slayers.
Yeah. So
Talk me-
Flamescale Youngblood is the one that does mortal wounds when you charge.
How many mortal wounds?
Whatever you roll on the charge dice.
Yeah.
So you roll your charge up and you go, cool, I got 6 or fucking whatever. You roll that many dice and each 6 is...
Okay, so you're probably looking
Now,
at...
unit can only be affected by it once, but it's still...
It's
cool.
On average 1 to 2 probably mortal wounds every time you charge, which
now
is
the
not
Rune
bad.
Suns themselves also have a command ability that means they can do D6 mortal wounds as well.
Okay. So you're looking
and what Rune Suns do to each other is they let each other all re-roll hit because they're so like
competitive.
They're so
right?
Well, we were talking about being young kids trying to pick up women. Rune Suns are so desperate to get their dad to love them that they compete against each other. And so they all get, if they're within 6 inches of another Rune Sun, they fight better and they reroll to hit. Now, Wormslayer Javelins, because 3s and 4s with no rend, 3 attacks, who cares? At least the Wormslayer Javelin does more damage against behemoths. And
if
you
you
get
come
to
up
shoot,
against something
and you
big or like a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, you've got something that can pick them off. Yeah.
I mean, the Magmadroth now has a bite attack. It was the only monster with a mouth that didn't have a bite attack, and now it's got a bite. You get to reroll to hit with that. I like the idea of having 4 Magmadroths that can do stuff. You send them out in 2 little groups, your little Fire Slayer cavalry. Or you just go, and you'd want to do 2s because you can't, all of their traits don't stack. So none of the mortal wounds that they do when they charge stack. Their mortal wounds from shooting do. So Magmadroths have always had a pretty good amount of mortal wound.
They've always been
output for shooting again.
Quite good, but I guess the thing was Magmadroths used to be a speed bump. Now they can be a hammer.
Yeah. And the way that their tails work is the same. The way their breath works the same, but the bleeding on you is better now. So you're gonna have to think. You go, well, I'm going to have to attack these Magmadroths, and I'm going to have to attack them back, and I'm going to take mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So I think there's a whole lot of cool shit that Magmadroths do now. Volkite Berserkers, I took him in 20. I know we were talking about Volkites before. I reckon in an army like this where you've got no shortage of you probably need a bit of an anvil somewhere.
Yeah, and that's a 40 wound unit. And also putting it in 120 means that I guess the downside of taking like say 2 10s, if you're not an army like Dispossessed that auto passes Battle Shock on a 1, 2, or a 3, is that if you need a command point for Inspiring Presence, you don't want to have to choose which unit to use it on. Whereas if you have 120 block and you know that they're about to get shit mixed, you can confidently be like, well, I got a character, I've got the Smiter or the Master within 6 inches of them, or 12 inches if it's the Rune Master in this list. I know that I don't need to worry about losing models to Battle Shock. And this is, I think, the thing that's going to be scarier for Fire Slayers now, right? Is losing models to Battle Shock when they're a 1 wound model, it doesn't actually scare me as much. When you are more than 1 wound, Battle Shock is your enemy because your opponent's going, every single one that flees is more damage I didn't have to do.
Yeah, I think you'll look at, you'll see a lot of people taking the trait and the artifacts and stuff that let Rune Fathers and shit make people immune to Battle Shock, especially because when you lose 1 Hearthguard, they're so expensive points wise that you're going to be like, he ran away. Look, the fact that they're bravery 8, you can make them.
Yeah, you'd have to work hard to make them run, but there's a lot of debuffs to bravery out there now. And with this, with this army, not like it can have strong dispel and anti-magic stuff, but compared to other armies, it's not like Nagash or like Death and things like that. It's not as high on those. There's enough that could bring them down in there. So basically, this army, probably the Rune Suns all tag team in either 2s. I would guess.
Yeah, probably in 2s. The Rune Smiters to tunnel either your Volkites to get the gold if someone's left it free, or to tunnel somewhere where you need some shooting. It's mainly because I like Rune Suns and not so much because, like, it depends. Does this list win a tournament? No. Is it a cool way to say, well, how fucking rad are Magma Droths?
Yep.
You know, they're more wounds now. Their shit's more simple. They get to attack. You can make them attack twice if you pick the right thing. This lodge is the lodge of everyone gets a trait because they're like
Yep.
they're the fierce Magmadroth breeders.
Yep.
But they also they can also have they also have a command ability, which is anytime any of their characters are in combat, or sorry, not in combat, anytime any of their characters want, they can give +1 to hit and +1 to wound for Auric Hearthguard shooting with their Molten Rock Bolts.
Yeah. So that's that one turn where you're like, I need to do this.
Yeah. So you can turn around and go, well, blah, 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 blah. And then they do 2 wounds to monsters. Like, there's a lot of cool synergies in the book that it didn't have before. Like, it didn't quite mesh together as a book, whereas now the things that should work in sync do.
Yeah. And
So,
I think that they've really, like I was saying before, they've absolutely nailed putting the vibe of Fire Slayers, like the fiction and the background of them, into the game. And I think that's excellent.
Can't wait. And then you've got some stuff that's really good matchup that should be really good matchups for them that are going to be really good matchups for them. So like Stormcaster, an amazing matchup for Fire Slayers. I'm putting it down now. I reckon that's going to be purely because all of the Magmadroths, especially like this list, to go, oh sweet, because all their stuff is roll less than the number of models in a unit to do mortal. So you've got things that are highly susceptible to small numbers of mortal wounds.
Yep.
With damage output that's low enough that your Magmadroth doesn't die, it just bleeds on you a bunch.
Which is what you want. Like, I actually think one of the things that would be good in a Fire Slayers list, I'm going to call this now, is allying in a cheap wizard like a Knight Incantor with the endless spell Emerald Life Swarm, if you were going with Magmadroth heavy, right? Because then you can have a situation where your Magmadroths are bleeding on someone, and then you're potentially healing them in the same phase.
Sorry, mate. You started talking. Sorry, did you say something? You started talking about elf magic shit.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we can't put magic in there. I'm just saying ways to heal Magmadroths, because obviously, like what we were talking about before, Magmadroths are scary in combat because they bleed on you and they do mortal wounds as you hurt them. Ways to heal them.
No, sorry, your point about Life Swarm and being able to regen wounds is awesome. I think one thing that is going to get overlooked, a lot of the Fire Slayer Facebook group, a lot of people are talking some of the lodges. The different lodges do cool shit. Like, you've got the Movement Lodge, you've got the Magmadroth Lodge, but then the other lodge is we've got all the fancy Trinkets Lodge.
Yeah,
so they get just out of the gates, they're like...
Yeah. What are they, like 3, I think? Out of the gates, they're just packing 3 fucking magic items, which is just, like, ridiculous.
You can go, all right, cool, I get extra Dispel there or whatever else.
Yeah.
So you go, that's cool. And you can also have 16 wound Magmadroths with that list. So you can take Greyford and have a 16 wound model that is a Rune Father that gets 4 attacks, 3s, -1, damage, 3 damage on top of his Magmadroth.
Yeah,
and so he's like, you're like, what the fuck? And then that guy's like, oh yeah, no, you're also dead though.
Yeah, and
so you can put your thumb on the scale that way, or you can go Lofnir, which I think is the rad one. They're like so they're the mercenaries who fight for free because they hate chaos so much.
Yeah, so they'll just do it against anyone. Yeah.
It's a fucking charity, man. This is a mercenary army. You can't have charity. But what they do is they're
bleeding heart mercenaries.
They're the bleeding heart mercenaries. They're like, oh nah, man. Like you obviously really hard up because chaos like fucked everything up. Whereas the other ones are like, what? You don't have gold? Shame about all your shit dying, man.
Yeah. Oh man, that sucks so bad. And they're like, but we're your neighbors. And they're like, yep. And if you don't got nothing to pay us, like, whoa, good. Would you guess our hands are tied?
Yeah, but I really like the way that they've hammed up that mercenary shit in the book, where they're saying like they don't care because they're not warriors of good.
Yeah.
They're religious zealots that follow Grimnir.
Yeah.
And the way that they worship Grimnir is by releasing his energy through the runes that are fucking hammered into their flesh. They couldn't give a fuck about you.
Yeah, they Hammerhall burns and they're like, well, I don't fucking care. Sorry, I just had a flick back through the chat and I noticed a couple of so obviously some of our Australian pronunciation is starting to is starting to bleed through. You'll be very...
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. You'll be very pleased...
Oh, no. I'm sorry, everyone
that we're...
all the time. So I've tried to hold out, like, tone down my accent as much as possible.
No, but even just the way we pronounce things, apparently. First of all, Alex, Vanilla Sass I'm never going to pronounce that right, Alex. I'm so sorry. He's saying that you're a non-believer for not writing a 4 Magmadroth list, so he keeps on building his 5 Magmadroths.
Oh, he's throwing down.
Yeah,
Fucking what a
yeah.
let.
He actually is the one that came second, I think second or third at West Coast GT with Iron Jaws doing an Infinity War list that just constantly generated wars.
Are you saying that this Alex guy is?
He's
Is
like,
that what you're saying?
He is the Canadian / English version of you, I think, right now, which is great. Also, yes,
Alex, if you have a way to make it work, can you put it on the Discord? Because I don't know how to make 5 Magmadroths work in a way that you can still take objectives, or if the watchword is who fucking cares? I have 5 Magmadroths, and I'm also keen.
You're always down. Also, Dad Hammer, like we've spoken about before, is a legend. Actually did a show, so check it out. If you go back, I believe that's on YouTube is the best way to find that. Let me know if I'm wrong, Dad Hammer. He did a show on the Fire Slayer's background and fiction and lore.
Dad Hammer did?
Yeah, and like,
fuck.
This is a man who, like, he gets that where that lore hits you is like right in your gibbly bits, so he knows how to sell it right too. I'd give it a watch and a listen because it's amazing. And just all of that. Don't tone it down at all is what Truthiness says. But the one that I'm specifically referring to...
What was the word that got people in our pronunciation?
Okay, well, what word do you think? And now I'll give you a heads up. It's something to do with list building. It's got something to do with list building. That's all that I'll give you. What do you reckon?
Sure.
Stumped?
Yeah.
It was Behemoth or Behemoth.
Who says Behemoth?
I think I was just on. It's common. I think both are relatively common. I just don't know where they're
Behemoth?
Behemoth. I think it
sounds cooler.
Yeah, Behemoth sounds more impressive. Behemoth sounds more scientific, though. I guess it mostly depends.
It sounds like some weird Latin shit. Fucking weird priest one day was talking about when they were clutching at their pearls, being afraid of, like, I don't know, a woman having rights or something. Like, come on, mate.
Yeah, and it was like Donna Mehus Behemoth. Yep.
Behemoth.
Yeah, I see it. I could definitely see it. Alex's response on the 5 list drop thing is that he's pretty sure it's who cares. And he was going to report back once he's face planted on some people with bleeding Magmadroths.
So the real truth there is that there is already a hobby hero that the whole world has, which is the dude who took... We need to get the list, but whatever it is, 20 fucking pump wagons to a tournament with more than 80 people at it.
I would love to start
if 5
that,
Magmadroths is what you need to do to be a hero, then just fucking Alex is the hero that we probably don't deserve him, but he's the hero that...
Yeah, look, and 31 drop army as well. Like, when you want to talk about maximum drops, he was like, how many are you taking? 31. I can just imagine your opponent just laughing, especially given how many of them were pump wagons, so were just single drop miniatures. Bill Robertson chiming in, Behemoth, fine, just assume that particular person or creature's gender. Well, I mean, I guess that's fair. Alariel is a she, so she would be a Behemoth.
Mate, in the lore for the Fire Slayers, they've talked about why they're all dudes.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it actually makes the whole Berserker thing make way more sense.
Because they're super lonely?
They're so lonely.
They're so lonely. They just want to feel something.
Rune mothers and rune daughters and whatever else. So they're like they're still hot-headed Fire Slayers, but because so few of them are born, they basically sit there building all of the... Like, they're priests and they're like constructors of defenses and probably also breeders. But can you imagine an entire civilization that is built around earning the right to get the attention of the 1 in 50 of your species that are born female?
I imagine it's probably much the same as like the Deepkin, right? Like just trying
so Fire Slayers
are
Fire Slayers are basically just an entire race of people with massive like sexual angst trying to prove that they're worthy of being able to have impress a member of the opposite sex. It's like peacocking the army.
Yeah, it makes sense then why they're so hardcore on that. Yeah, I'll take it.
It's just like a hardcore repression. They're like, no, but and so Rune Sons are like the saddest of all because they're like, well, if I am really really good, maybe my dad will say I can go on a date.
That's right, of course, because they're like all the Rune Sons are just trying to impress the Rune Fathers and whatnot.
Impress dad.
Yeah,
It's
the
actually
head.
kind of weird.
Also chiming in saying the hairdressers finally make sense. Yeah, definitely. They're like everyone's just peacocking and trying to have the prettiest hat. If peacocking
Look at
wasn't
me,
a
I've
thing
got the
from
best.
like
I've got the best hair. How fucking sick is
the
it?
early
And they also have a bit in
2000s.
there. The new law where each lodge has their own like special recipe of hair gel.
Oh god,
Like
good.
you've got
Because
it's like
that was the
it's like
one thing.
they're hardcore berserk warriors of Grimnir, and then they're like who also have secret recipes for hair gel.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like they have secret recipes for what? Meat spice, weapon building. They're like, oh no, for different hair gels of L'Oreal Paris. You know, like they're trying to make sure that they have the best and the most impressive.
Well, in the world that was, it used to be like pig fat that they all did there, and they all dyed their hair orange so that they could like follow one, so they could.
So that they could.
The first Slayer
Slayer.
was like dyed his hair orange because he like let some dude he was guarding
King's
die,
son.
and that
It was the
person had
King's
orange
son.
hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
the King's son. And whereas now it's like Grimnir was real angry and had a mohawk, so now
We all do that. Also, I assume that he was just really angry because he was a ginger in the first place. No hate on gingers. You're beautiful people. If you scare me a little bit because I
speak for yourself. I've got hate for gingers. Come at me.
Man, they scare me because I saw that South Park episode and I feel like all they're doing is biding their time, waiting. To swing right back around to where we started. This is the list that you wrote where I challenged you, 4 Magma Droths. Make it work, make it competitive. I'm assuming, so you got 1 unit of Auric Hearthguard there to tunnel up, to be a little bit of a threat, a second for your back line.
Can I give you another hot take list that I really wanted to do, but the FAQ is going to say whether or not you can do it.
Okay, so what you're saying is
matched play,
this is a list that doesn't do what Khorne players did with Skull Cannons. Because Khorne just...
I've missed the goss on what happened to Skull Cannons. I heard Rob complaining about it and just went, whatever.
It looked like, in the new book, that there were a ton of buffs that you could put on Skull Cannons that were potentially going to make Khorne one of the shootiest armies in the game. And then the
just lent into it.
So a lot of people then went out and bought Skull Cannons, much in the same way as those people who built units of 20 Arcanaut Thunderers, not Arcanaut, whatever, Grunstock Thunderers with Ether Cannons. Yeah. And then the FAQ came out and changed that so that it made
my loophole got closed.
Basically, yeah, the loophole got closed. And suddenly that couldn't be a thing. So what you're saying is that you created a loophole list, but you didn't want to throw it forward until we see the FAQ. Run me through the loophole list.
Okay. This is by no means a Mike LaRue original. Like, this is not me coming up with this out of nowhere. Yep. But there is Grimroth Berserkers and Doomseekers are heroes, but they aren't leaders in the app. Mm-hmm. And they're not leaders in the match play points at the back of the book.
Right.
They are other units.
Okay.
So theoretically, what you could do is you could go minimum battle line, a character on foot, like a Rune Father or something, and 15... And so you can do 15 Grimroth Berserkers.
So you could have effectively an army of characters.
Yes, you can have 90 wounds worth of Grimroth Berserker if you wanted to. Now they are almost always piling and attacking 3/3s, -1 rend 2 damage, -2 rend 2 damage, some fucking bullshit like that. They're good.
Yep, and then they roll a dice again at the end, and potentially they go again. Is that?
Yep, and then if you attack them, and then if you kill them, they attack again. Now, just imagine how good that would be if they're from Shaiish and you give them, like, the Sword of Judgment, where the, like, 6s do fucking D6 mortal wounds against your character.
Christ.
So, where it got me really excited is you go, same as Alex, everyone's, the people's champion, and whoever took 30 or 20 pump wagons, like the people's champion, the hobby heroes that we all have. If someone did 15 Grimroth Berserkers...
Yeah,
I'm so excited about it.
I'd like to see it. I have a feeling that is a loophole that will be closed.
Now, if it's not, I will run it at an event.
That's a lot. That's a lot more like $40 characters that you need to buy to put it together. But I'd like to see it. I think
Nah,
it could
man,
be
I'm
good.
just going to convert the shit out of it. So.
Okay, yeah, convert. Just buy a unit of Hearthguard Berserkers and convert all of them to be characters.
What do you mean
basically.
buy a unit? You know how many Hearthguard Berserkers I have in boxes?
Yeah, actually, that's true. You have so many unbuilt models. What your poor child.
But I also have # more painted armies than Jordan.
You do. Jordan's had 4 years to paint one Stormcast army. Still hasn't done it. Everybody, he should probably get.
And I have 2 fully painted Age of Sigmar armies in the Dispossessed army that needs to go on round. Like,
Mate, all I'm saying is that you're obviously the superior hobbyist. Whether you're the superior gamer depends on the next event that you both go to. But you are right now the superior.
Nah,
hobbyist.
Jordan's me, man. I've only ever beat him once in a game of Warhammer, but I am the reigning champion in our friendship. I'm the reigning champion.
That's good. So it's always good when your friendships are made out of competitiveness, which I feel like is what everybody who plays War Dollies is.
I was gonna say you've met everyone that I play games with.
Yeah. There's only even Tim would rather get people so drunk they can't finish the game than actually win the game.
Well, Bruno is the only one of us that doesn't know how to win. He doesn't have the will of the warrior.
But he's also the only one of you that's ever been on a live stream as well, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and everyone was talking about what a nice guy he is, and they're right. And then he lost the game before, which is what he always does.
Hey, he was in it. For those of you who don't remember, he was on the CanCon stream against Swiftborn Agents.
Sylvaneth player who got demolished by
the posties.
By the postmen.
By the postmen of Age of Sigmar. All right, Mike. I've got to move on from Fire Slayers. I could spend the entire
Yeah, man. I'm sorry that I kept diverting a conversation.
No, that's exactly what I'm all about. You've obviously got some cozies to be going and sinking. But is there any last things that you want to chat about the Fire Slayers, about the book, about the release, about the lore, any like the stuff that came out? Being an early adopter of the Fire Slayers, who's invested obviously so much money into them. Any last thoughts about them?
The parting one is now, everyone laughed at me when I had 6 Magma Droths. Who's laughing now?
Yep. Okay. So, yeah. Well, I mean, you still can't run 6 Magma Droths in 2,000 points, but you can run 5.
Run at me.
You can run 5. You can run 5.
No, I think and the other one was I'm really excited to see what they do in the changing of the meta, and I think more than anything, I just am stoked that my playing experience when I run Fire Slayers won't be negative for my opponents anymore. Because there's nothing worse than rocking up to a table and having like you watch the enthusiasm drain out of your opponent when they realize what your matchup is, and not because it's like I'm running Daughters of Cain, you're like, ugh. But where it's like, you're going to have a negative play experience. So I'm stoked that that's not around anymore.
Because your army is based around giving your opponent that negative play experience. Yeah, and I think that's actually been something we've seen coming less and less at the moment. So yeah, I'm stoked.
Like the mousetrap or whatever that Skaven have got. Yeah, cool. I'm sure that's going to get pointed appropriately at some point. People are going to learn how to play against it, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's a bit like Everblaze Comet. It's a real big hit, but I took it to an event. I thought I'd give it a try. I cast it like 3 out of 5 games because it was either unbound or I failed to roll a fucking 6 or 7 or whatever you need to roll. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see angry gingers who all need to get laid coming out as the new army. That's like the new hotness. I'm so excited.
I reckon we're going to finally see them. They're much like Skaven. I think when they do well, it's not because they had a mechanic that they could lean on that gave it to them. I think when they do well, it's going to be because they genuinely did it by themselves, in and of themselves, with a good army and being well played.
Yeah, I think the production meta is not going to hurt it too much because everyone's got 90 Volkite Berserkers anyway.
Yep, they already
even as much as I never wanted to do that tactic, I got 90 painted Volkite Berserkers. Can be done. But look, man, I'm stoked that we got to have rambling hobby chats that went all over the joint.
Well, look, they definitely went all over the joint, but we had a good bit to chat about. So, Mike, thank you very much.
My pleasure, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever do want to play Mike and you are heading out to Australia, let me know because I'll put you guys together. He will give you one of the most fun games. There will be an excessive amount of swearing and probably an excessive amount of alcohol content, but he will give you one of your
guaranteed on both.
Also, thank you so much for joining us from your place of business while you were doing business and fucking nailing it and selling shit and doing all that stuff at the same time as talking War Dollies. I love it. Thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Hooroo.
Hooroo, mate. Who fucking roo. So that was Mike, and it was he's a very old friend of mine from back in Sydney. Very early adopter of Fire Slayer. It's great to have a chat to him, but we do have some other stuff to talk about tonight. I have been talking to you guys that I would get to it, and I swear to you, it is coming now. So the thing that we've already looked at, which we'll flick back to nice and quick, just so that you can see it. Now this was the list that took out the Bris Vegas Open. This was the Fire Slayers list coming in first, beating just behind it a Flesh Eaters Courts army and a Daughters of Cain army. Now, for those of you who are only just joining us recently, what we were looking at beforehand is the fact that of our recent results of the SCGT, 120 plus players, Daughters of Cain taking out first and second, Scaventide taking out third. Then obviously we're seeing Flesh Eater Courts and Daughters of Cain there in Bris Vegas Open, and Flesh Eater Courts and Daughters of Cain again in Border Wars. So 3 major events over the weekend. Like I said before, I'm so sorry, I've missed some. And I do apologise for that because I like to try and be across everything. So 3 major events, all featuring Daughters of Cain and Flesh Eater Courts, which is obviously a sign that the Daughters of Cain aren't struggling under the new meta. Flesh Eater Courts are all doing really great. Where the only 2 ones that I see in there that are surprise are Nurgle coming in second and the Fire Slayers taking that first. Obviously, this was probably the first event they've had with their new book, though. So from there, what we want to have a look at and what we're going to have a cheeky look at, let me just put this bad boy in here so that we can see it. So these were the 2 lists in the Bris Vegas Open, that middle event that took out second and third. That's what we're going to look at now. These are the 2 lists, second and third. I hope that it's clear enough for you to see them. But having a look there, you can see that Flesh Eater Courts list. This is run by Gemma. She's one of the most talented players in Australia. She's very good. Had her on the stream before where she commentated with us for CanCon. She's part of the Failed Charge podcast. So rockin' Flesh Eater Courts. There's an Archregent in there. Byrant Ghoul on Royal Terrorgeist, which is not surprising. And one on Zombie Dragon, Crypt Infernal Courtier, and a bunch of Flayers in the Dead Watch. And Blisterkin, because obviously the top 2 are Blisterkin and the other one, whatever, basic bit shit. But like looking at this list, straight up, there's 3 summons in it, like straight off the bat. So you're looking at, I'm guessing 100, I think they're 180 points, 170 points for Crypt Flayers, given that it's Dead Watch and there's a Crypt Infernal Courtier. I guess that'd be the case. So you're looking at 9 extra Crypt Flayers coming into this list turn 1 before your opponent has a chance to do anything. Super good, super competitive, and not the only Dead Watch list that we saw do well over this weekend. We'll be talking about that in a second. Daughters of Cain list. Anyone who plays competitively has probably seen something similar to this. The only noticeable difference is substituting Marathi for the Bloodrack Medusa and the Blood Sisters in there. Otherwise, Witch Elves, Canary Lifestalkers, Cauldron Guard, and obviously Hagnar, because Hagnar are kind of the tippity top at the moment. Those 2 lists coming in second and third at the Bris Vegas Open. Now, where I want to go from this and why I would like to talk about this is that we also had the Dead Watch, a Flesh Eater Courts win, as we were looking at just before. We also had Flesh Eater Courts take out Border Wars, which is a 40-player tournament right on the border of New South Wales and Victoria, run by some absolute hobby legends down that way. And we had Flesh Eater Courts do really well there. Now, looking at it, what I'm going to show you is 2 lists. The one on the left is the list that came second at the Bris Vegas Open, and the one on the right is the list that came first at Border Wars. Just tell me if you recognise anything between these lists. They're both Flesh Eater Courts. Now, the list that took out Border Wars was played by Chris Welfare. He's of the Mortally Wounded podcast. Give them a look up. He is one of the most tactical and intelligent players of the game in Australia. He's a British person that has come to Australia, though, so like I don't know whether the UK wants to claim him, even though the UK is probably getting smaller, or whether Australia wants to claim him, whatever. Much like a lot of our top players in Australia, they seem to be Brit imports. But did really, really well with this Flesh Eater Courts list. Leaning on the Quarter Delusion, Feast Day giving him like extra pile-in and attacks and double pile-in attacks and blah, 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 blah. But both leaning on Dead Watch, which I think is just quite telling. Roughly the same amount of flayers too, a little bit less summoning in his list. But again, we're looking at 2 lists that have topped events over this last weekend, both very similar coming out of the Flesh Eater Courts. Now, The other thing that I would say about these lists is that both the players that took these places, which is Gemma's list, which you have on the left side of the screen right now, and Chris's list, which you have on the right side of the screen, they are top tier players in and of themselves. Like people that have done well with non-competitive armies, people that know war dollies in and out and are very, very good at it. And they've obviously said to themselves, I want to try and see what happens if I take the new hotness. And in doing so, you've basically, when you see people and they talk about like giving kids like fire and how terrible a decision that would be, it's effectively you've given two people fire and a deodorant can. And what you have come out with is just them burning up people left, right, and center. I mean, power to them. That's really all I want to touch on that one, because Flesh Eater Court's doing well is to be expected. Two very competitive, very talented players taking Flesh Eater Courts. That's pretty much to be expected as well. However, something that I would love to look at, and now I'm just going to jump back to this one just to show you. So this is the South Coast GT results. What I would really like to talk about is that, so that first there and that second there, both Daughters of Cain, the SCGT left-hand results on your screen. First and second were Daughters of Cain, and third was Skaven Tide. Now the Daughters of Cain lists, they're great, but they're quite familiar to those who play competitively and know what the most common competitive Daughters of Cain list looks like. But the one that I would like to look at is this Skaven Tide list, and it will become immediately apparent why I wanted to look at this list and why I'm so fucking excited that it got third. And here it is. Tom Maudsley, or Maudsley, or whatever it is, I might have copied that across. God, I want to give you a hug. Just look at this. This list has 4 Vermin Lords. 4 goddamn Vermin Lords. And then a Gracia, minimum battle line. And just have a look at how many goddamn endless spells there are. Aether Void Pendulum, Geminids of Ulgrish, Soul Snare Shackles, Umbral Portal, Vermintide, Warp Lightning Vortex, Chronomatic Cogs, and the Palisade. Someone in the chat, if you have a second, because I couldn't get around to working out how many points in this army were spent on endless spells. That's what I'd like to know. I would love to know. So if you're in the chat, have a look at that one. But this list is 4 Vermin Lords and a Greyseer. So for those of you who are listening on the podcast or watching this back, there's a Vermin Lord Warpseer who is the general with Master of Magic. So that gives the Vermin Lord +1 to cast. You combine that with the terrain feature, the Gnaw Holes that they get, which also give you +1 to cast. It means that Vermin Lord Warpseer is casting with +2, which I assume would be what you would cast Warp Lightning with, so that you're casting it on a 6, I believe, which is just fucking powerful. You've also got the Vermin Lord Corruptor in there with the Sword of Judgment, which is, if you've got 10 attacks with a reroll, that's where you want the Sword of Judgment. What that does is against heroes and monsters on a 6 unmodified or a modified 6 to hit, you do d6 mortal wounds instead of any other damage. 10 attack character with rerolls to hit, the odds are you're getting at least 2. Vermin Lord Deceiver, which is the poppy, throwy ninja one. And then the Vermin King, who is obviously like the amalgamation of all of them put together. The Gracie with Skitterleap, who I believe would only be able to use it on himself. The Deceiver also would have Skitterleap to use on the Vermin Lords, though. This list, I love it. It's ridiculous. And yeah, I don't know how it works. Like, there's just, like, I love the Deceivers. I love that you have maxed out your Behemoth allowance with Deceivers. So there's obviously a lot of magic, which is why there's so many endless spells in there. There's just sweet Betty Dingus. Like, you cast the cogs, I'm assuming to slow down time to give you an extra spell. The Palisade is negative. There's a lot of stuff that I'm assuming is based around shutting down your opponent while you hurt them. Because you look at, like, between the Geminids, the Shackles, Vermintide, the Warp Lightning Vortex, and the Palisade, you've got 5 negative, like debuff and control spells in there, which I'm guessing is the purpose of this list, is to control and mitigate your opponent's opportunities before you come in and take the gold with the Clan Rats and do all the damage between spells and your just Vermin Lords in combat in general, because you've got 4 goddamn combat monsters there with save after saves. This list, the reason I wanted to show it is because it excites me. I love that this came third at a 120 plus player event. against a very competitive field. By SCGT is one of the big bads in the year. It's one of the biggest, one of the most competitive as well, because it breeds that they not only do they have an amazing level of hobby, some of the best painting, best coolest armies. Armies are built for this event. This is the event in that regard. And it's super competitive, and yeah, I'm stoked to see that this Scaventide list did well, because I love the idea that a big old Vermin Lord bash is competitive. And yeah, damn, there's 8 endless spells in this list. The difference is, those who watch regularly probably are aware that Mr. Nathan Prescott, who is on the show with Rob, did a Gloomspite Gits list with a whole lot of endless spells. However, his tactic there was, I create chaos by covering the board in the spells and then ask you how you deal with it. I feel like this list doesn't do that. I feel like this list instead has 8 endless spells, but they all serve a very specific purpose. I think they have redundancies in place. Now, I could be wrong. And Tom, mate, if you are the player of this list, potentially you just fucking created some weird goddamn Skaven ass list and pulled magic out of a hat. However, I reckon this is a very clever list. I reckon it's really tactical, and goddamn if I don't get super excited. Warp Lightning Vortex in there is totally underpointed. We all know this, but the list itself is just, it's some sweet ass hotness. It makes me all gooey inside. It gets me super excited. Now, a couple of other things that I just quickly want to flick across before we go off, before we get to that last little part. So the last thing that I want to touch on before we go, there we go, get there, so fast, so many buttons. The last thing before we go into the last little section, which is something that I said I would do, is I just want to recap this just for anybody playing at home, which shows that our stats breakdown of Dwarden shows that Dispossessed are currently the superior Dwarden, the maximum toppity-top 60% victory. Now, that's going to change over this weekend, because I know that they had a bit of a rough run this weekend. I think they had a couple of poor placings. But as of right now, as of all the stats that we have been given, Dispossessed are superior to the Legion with a 60% win rate. That is all that matters. Next week is fake news, and it doesn't even matter. If you put !Legion into the chat right now, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. But the last thing that I want to do today, the last thing that we're going to chat about, because it is time to say goodbye, or it's almost time to say goodbye. Last thing we're going to look at is we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about my favorite new segment starting this week, based off of a dumb joke that I make that a bunch of people then messaged me about, asking why I didn't actually do it. A few weeks ago, I said that I would do a segment where I spoke about just Australian myths or animals or shit that should be in the mortal realms. And that's what we have coming in this week. We have them rocking in. And so let me just pull this up, because the first one, like I said, we are starting with the Bunyip. Now, the Bunyip, for those of you playing at home, is the Bunyip is a creature of Australian myth. There's a little picture right there for you to have a look at, which has, it's something that you grow up with as a kid. You hear stories about the Bunyip, and then as you get older, you find out that the Bunyip is actually pretty fucked up. So it started out, so the Bunyip is from the Wagaya Aboriginal language out of Australia, the Indigenous Australians. And it's got really heavily debated origins. A bloke did a cultural analysis of a whole lot of different Indigenous dialects and find that there are 9 distinct types of variation on the Bunyip. So I've tried to get a few of them here to have a chat about. And the other problem with that, with having so much different stuff, is that there's a lot of different descriptions of the Bunyip. One bloke legit just described it as this tall, long-legged, blue-skinned, feathered land bird with a huge beak and a ball sack for a neck that would disembowel you with its talons. Now, this is a cassowary, which is a different Australian animal that hadn't yet been identified at that type. So this bloke thought a cassowary was a Bunyip, but they actually go right back into Indigenous culture. And the cool thing that I kind of like, The cool thing that I really dig about that is that they filled a lot of like that, especially for European settlers, right? Like they were arriving in Australia, as we have discussed earlier on this show and in many shows before. Australia's full of hate. It is a very, very dangerous place to be. We got so many deadly animals. So European settlers rocked up and were just dying in droves, right? And the bunyip is kind of like a traditional indigenous potentially mythological creature that explains that, like the big bad in the woods, like, you know, the wolf that hunts people. So yeah, that, like, going right back, some people describe the bunyip as having claws, tentacles, fur. I mean, this was actually a quote out of a newspaper, for God's sake. So just have a look at this. This was from a newspaper. My attention was attracted by a creature casting up water and making a noise. It's in sound resembling a porpoise. It had the appearance of a bulldog's head, but perfectly black. This was from the Sydney Gazette in 1821. So, looking at this, we can kind of say that people had some weird attitudes. One dude's talking about it being a bird. Someone's talking about it being like a water dog with fur. There are a whole lot of things talking about it having claws, scales, tentacles, feathers, fur. It's pretty messed up. So, perfect for Gur is what I'm saying. This is an Australian animal that should have a battle tome. It should be in, so like the Iron Jaws or the Gloomspike Gits should ride this thing into battle. It's like some of the theories as to where it came from is like potentially like seals had traveled a long way upriver, and Indigenous Australians then like potentially like thought that maybe they were something or didn't recognize them, or like prehistoric bones or animals that we don't know about, like could have potentially been where that comes from, because there's a theory, right, that there was a prehistoric marsupial that like matched that description from 46,000 years ago. But basically what I'm saying is that this is an animal from Gur. Like, this thing lives there. And I want to tell you why. Because it eats children and livestock that stray too close to bodies of water. Basically, bunyips always live near water. Like, where what's the official description? They're like near swamps and billabongs and creeks, river mouths, like lakes. They live in water, and if you get too close to the edge, they come and grab you. Now, they've got claws. They have claws. Like, I'm not going to, like, tell you any lies. They're terrifying in that respect. Like, check this, all right? I just want to show you this one. This is an early image of what a bunyip looked like. Like, look at that. That's that's hate. And if that isn't straight out of the mortal realms, I don't know what is. So the other one looked like a dog. This one, I guess it's like a more fucked up dog, perhaps. But this thing, it's got claws and tentacles. So let's go with that. Claws and tentacles at some point. And the messed up thing, the thing that terrifies me the most, is that it chooses not to kill you with its claws and tentacles. It would rather hug you to death. So it wraps you up in a hug and then slowly drags you under the water. And like, it has smooth skin, apparently. Even if it's got feathers, it's got quite smooth skin. It has apricot eyes. So like, not like orange, it has apricot eyes. So the color of apricots and glowing. And the thing is, this is the bit that this is where I call shade, this is where I don't believe it. It has a terrifying bellowing cry that you hear just as it attacks. But the only person who have heard that cry are those who have been attacked, and no one has ever survived a bunyip attack. Which begs the question as to where all the data and all the sightings and everything has come from, but that's where it is, because the majority of our information from it was told by, 100% Hypnocracken. Dun, dun, dun. This thing's fucking tense. The majority of our information obviously comes from white settlers who started writing down these stories in the 1840s, 1850s, when all of their like kids and stuff started going missing. But does that not sound like the story that we would read about from the mortal realms? Like children in the realm of life or in Gur who go into the forest and go too close to a river or a lake or a billabong or something, and like then just get slowly taken under the water by this weird dog thing. Like it 100% to me feels like it should be a part of Age of Sigmar. So that's why I'm all about it. And like this, right? Like this one. This is another quote I found. I dig it. The bunyip made his home in the deep water holes in the rainforests, lurking in the gloom by day and roaming the earth by night. During the time of darkness, he brought fear to the tribes, threatening to devour any human he might meet. Now, this was from 1852. Now, does that quote not sound 100% like it is straight out of some Age of Sigmar fiction somewhere? I think that it's for me, I'm like, damn, that should 100% be a critter in Age of Sigmar. It should be a thing. It should get to eat all of the stuff that it wants to. There is like a whole lot of super cool history on it, and like for those of you who are interested or know anything, there's a whole lot of stuff in the Dreamtime about the Rainbow Serpent. Which, if you genuinely are interested, I'd look it up or let me know, and I'll do some stuff at the end of the next episode about it. But they basically, like, there's one of the most common legends is that a man whose name was Bunyip broke the law of the Rainbow Serpent, who is kind of like the elder god of Indigenous Australian beliefs and culture. Broke the law and ate the Rainbow Serpent's totem animal, and so was turned into the evil spirit that is the Bunyip, which has like a ton of powers and is like a murderer or a punisher that's supposed to bring justice. It also, like, its name can mean like imposter and pretender, which I'm just saying, GW, if you've got some lore writers, be looking up the Bunyip. It's terrifying. It sits in like a scary area of culture. Like it's like the Deepkin. The Bunyip is like the Deepkin, but like just more insidious because it doesn't have a good moral behind it. It just eats your livestock and eats your kids because it's a bit of a jerk, I guess, and wants to have fun. That's just about all that we have time for today. That was our brief little educational segment on how fucked up Australia is and how terrifying all of our many creatures and animals and whatnot are. If you liked it, I'll do it again next week. Let me know if you want to learn about more fucked up Australian animals that belong in the mortal realms. LLV, chime in. How many players at Border War? Border War had... nope, that's not the right one. Let me try giving you one that has... That's just the dispossessed stats. I really wanted you to see the dispossessed stats again. There we go. Border War had 40 plus players. Don't know how many exactly it was. But that is all the time that we have for this evening. Mike chiming in. He's finally got the Cozzy in his hand. I'm so glad. And that's going to be all for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody who's tuned in and joined me. If you like what you hear, please remember that all of our subscribers on Patreon and Twitch, and whether you're through Twitch Prime or however you choose to support the show, everything you do goes into the show. And we do fucking love you. It also makes you statistically a better lover and a more attractive human being. No matter where you are, what race, color, or creed you subscribe to, or how you think of yourself, if you are like in any way supporting the Honest Wargamer, you're more attractive. I could tell you that. That's a scientific fact. We did stats. But thank you very much. It's been lovely to have you. If you've been in the chat, even if you've just been sitting there and doing your own thing and just like lurking on us, if you're listening back to this on any of the podcasts or streaming stuff, we fucking love you. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. And